a story about him, how he's at a movie drive-in theater, and his mom's like, "Oh, the movie is so much language stuff," so she told him to go crawl in the back seat and look up the other way, so not pay attention. And he's watching the other screen and it has boobies on it. Like I've heard that story like 90 times.
Oh my goodness. Speaking of 90 times, we are live. Welcome everybody. Another rolling start. I feel like I don't have a can anymore. This is going to be my new gimmick. This is Late Night Comics coming to you live Monday evenings most weeks. I think there's sometimes we're not able to pull the show off because it's not a professional operation, but we're pretty consistent. We got 32 episodes. This is episode 32. Not really a milestone, but hey, it's the most episodes I've ever done. What about you?
As far as for episodes I've done,
You've done way more.
yeah, I've done way more.
Recounting all the various shows you've been on.
Man, sometimes I feel like John Rickles. I've been on every show. I crash it. Just walking on. Man, tonight though, I gotta say it's interesting because you read something that's usually it's kind of out of your wheelhouse tonight. It's kind of the thumbnail. I know you're a fan of like at least, and that's, I want to see fan. Fan's a strong word because I don't really know what your attachments are to Shazam. But I mean, like I know that you want to. Your goal is if I'm going to put my effort into a book, I want something out of it meaningful instead of just wasting my time. So I'm hoping tonight, because you read that out of your wheelhouse that you kind of enjoy it. Now you may not have to like this is the best thing ever, but you walk away. It's like what that wasn't bad. Maybe in the future, or maybe I'll go venture in the past and look at some of the older comic books from other writers. That's our goal on this channel. Is when we talk about books, at least for me personally, is that I'll come across books I never really wanted to even talk about. Like offline, we're doing our offline retrospectives, they call it, on Thursday nights after the Kiki Puppet Show. Um, we'll talk about book club, stuff. And we were doing Murder Falcon. That was such as such by our boy Skipitosh, who I hope is still feeling well. I know that he was in the hospital last week. Like I said, like I hope you're doing well, Skip. And it's always great to have you on here. And I still owe you $70 or more whenever you send those books out. But yeah, I mean, he suggested we review Murder Falcon, Jenny Warren Johnson. I know a lot of you guys are really really onto that, like in like general address, like oh I gotta read this, do a power bomb. Murder Falcon is a book I admit I looked at it and I said this is the most stupidest comic book ever. Why would I read this? So then because you guys wanted to review it, so I was like, all right, I'll crack it open. And then it just blows my mind. This is the most stupidest concept, but I'm enjoying it. It's
Yeah.
like no offense to people who think it's a great concept, but I mean like it just works. The characters brought to life, the emotional attachment to something and that us being fans of comic books, that's what we want. We want to just whether with TV, movie, anything we invest into, we want to basically to dive into it and just embrace everything because everything is just so freaking awesome. That's the goal of anything. We want to be entertained. If you're not entertained, it's kind of this kind of feel kind of sad, depressed. So like I said, with today comic books, I've gone more indie than I've ever gone indie before. And I'm not talking about Indiana Jones, but I'm talking about indie books. I started reading Criminal Man by Edward Brubaker. You guys have been like you had Criminal Cast in here like last year or 2 years ago, and you guys are just knocking it out of the park as far as reviews stuff, showing everything. Now I've seen the light, brother. it's like there's a reason why you guys review comic books. I mean, not just you guys. It's when I mean like your channel, being like even Angleton, stuff. We want to share our passion about the stuff we love, and maybe find other people who enjoy what we love either. It's called being a human. I don't want to get too in depth in this, but But like I said, the whole goal is just to basically to experience something new that we've never experienced before, and just share our love for stuff that we love. Um, sure we chide each other, but there's a sense of community, and that's probably the best thing you can get from being a comic book fan, or even a movie fan or TV show fan. You know, we always want to we form these bonds. I mean, Ash, I've never seen your face. I've only seen your hands, but you have good looking hands, and they're trustworthy hands. I'd almost say, and I would consider you a very good friend.
Ah,
And to continue this rambling, I want to talk about my trip to the Caribbean. I have this slideshow presentation all set up, and this is me, uh, you know, with my floaties on, going into the water. No, but anyway, but getting back on track. Yes, I rhymed there. Um, I want to talk about what you said. You don't have a can tonight, so man, you are Ash without a can. Get it? You're not an Ash can. You're Ash without a can.
without a can.
But
Well, I'm really
I.
excited. I'm
Yeah.
really excited. I one of the things I love is when you find something that you really love and you're like, oh my gosh, this like really moves me. Like you have a lot of enthusiasm about it, whether it's comics or movies or whatever,
Mhm.
and then you share it with someone, and then you get to see like their discovery of it.
Yep.
It's such a cool experience to be like, "Oh, they get it too." Like, "Oh, they like it." Like, because sometimes they don't. Like, sometimes we like something and other people are like, That's crap. I hate it." And we're like, "Oh, it's a bummer." Like,
Yeah.
because, you know, obviously, whenever someone likes anything, whatever it is, they like it. Somehow it works for them, right? And so I know for myself, like the things that I love, I'll use Avatar as an example. Like, I love Avatar, and I'm not really butthurt. Most people love Avatar. It's why it's the third highest grossing movie of all time, or the second. The sequel is the first Avatar is the number one. So my point is it's well loved. So I'm not like alone. But when other people are like, oh, it's crap, and they dog it, it doesn't insult me. But I'm just like, oh, you. I feel bad like that they don't get what I get. Like I feel like they're missing out, and I try to remember that when I don't like something that someone else loves, and I'm like, oh, that's crappy, or whatever. Like I'm like, and I think one of the reasons I love doing like shows like this and or just being in the chat on other people's shows or whatever and talking with people who love comics is because I like trying to get in other people's heads and trying to see from their perspective what it is that makes the thing likable. Like what because I don't like disliking things. Like I really want to appreciate, I want to enjoy all the things. And if I don't, I want my eyes to be open. So once upon a time I used to do a show with Skip, like, and one of the things I loved about doing a show with Skip is that his tastes were very different than mine, and he exposed me to a lot of things that I normally never would have touched. They were just way out, like well, Daniel Warren Johnson, is a good example. I'm a fan. Probably he's the biggest reason I was never gonna do a power bomb. Are you kidding me? Like, um, and now, like after Murder Falcon, Daniel Warren Johnson has shot up way up. He's probably like in one of my top 5 creators. Like just skyrocketing. I'm so excited about this guy. I am becoming a fan, and I love that. I love experiencing new things. I mean, I love the things I already like. Like I can't wait for Avatar 3. I already know I like Avatar. I love James Cameron. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna like Avatar 3. But I also like, what's this? I've never had this before. Some brand new thing. Like, um, and yeah. So reading Shazam tonight was. I'll save my comments for when we get to it, but it was interesting because Shazam is not in my wheelhouse. I wouldn't consider myself a Mark Waid fan. Um, I do like Dan Mora's art, so I guess I was getting 1 out of 3 things that were appealing to me from the surface. And so diving into it, I was like, okay, cool. This is not something I'm coming into predisposed to like, right? Like there's no bias, there's no positive bias for this. Like if I like this book, it's going to be because it earned me liking it. Um, so I do like coming into things, not knowing what to expect or challenging. And yeah, so it was cool to put that on the slate tonight. And then of course, um, we got Usagi Ojimbo TMNT #2 as our other featured comic. So um, yeah, that's what we're going to be getting to here soon. Let's welcome our chat. Thank you guys for being here. If you're joining us from the long running England team stream, um, thank you for coming over here. Appreciate that. We love seeing you, and we do genuinely like talking with you. So please, we encourage you, be vocal in chat, whether it's with us or each other. We will not get to every single comment, so please don't feel if we don't address your comment like we're skipping you or what have you. It's just one of those things you have to balance. We can either be a show that's just all about comments and we just talk about it, or we talk about the things we have planned to talk about and we try to incorporate the comments and we have a balance, and inevitably things are going to get missed. So I purposely would rather skip comments so that basically if everyone gets skipped sometimes, then everyone feels treated equally. So, um, but please don't let that discourage you from commenting at all, um, because I that the reason I like doing this show, truly, is because I like talking with you guys. This is just an avenue for me to discuss comics, not just with RDV, but as many people as possible. And it's not feasible to have 20 people on a live stream, right? So, um,
I want to point out that I'm gonna be the good host. You'll be the bad host. Good cop, bad
oh,
cop.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I don't know how that
I will
works.
get to as many comments as I can. Ash will avoid all as many as he can. Here's a 50-50 shot. You may be red. Equality.
So,
Everyone's a
anyways, with that
president.
long disclaimer out of the way, welcome Marania's #1 in the chat. She is both first and best and most humblest. So, uh, thank you, Marania, for joining us. HR Goes Vocal is #2. Ethereal Dragon has joined us. Haven't seen Ethereal Dragon in a little while, so good to see you. Zach, he says, I like how Ash had to bring up the box office even as he says nobody else is to like it. No, I bring up the box office to say that it's not like I'm not liking some obscure thing that no one likes. And you know, if I like Avatar, I'm in the majority. That's all I was trying to say. I guess I should have picked something else that was just really obscure that nobody likes that I like. It was just harder to pick something like that.
But
Um,
and that's another thing too. It reminds me of I was probably a better example would be more Skip Tosh likes Wes Anderson films.
yes.
Yeah, I think that they look beautiful. But they are as far as story wise go, they're not my cup of tea. I watched The Life Aquatic. I'm like, oh, it's a Bill Murray movie, and maybe it's my fault because I thought like, oh, he's gonna do with me. Bill Murray's gonna do something, and then this became so flat. Like there were jokes, but they were the cringe, awkward jokes, not MCU level bad. I mean, like, but they were like someone trying to make a joke, and it ends up becoming a Zach joke, and it's just like I just can't get into it. Sorry, Zach, but you're the perfect example. But I mean, but yeah. So Radio City is coming out. Or not, sorry, not Radio City. Yeah, Asteroid City is the new Wes Anderson film. New film, and I've seen that trailer 3 times now. It tells you how many times I've been to like the theater. I've seen it for it was for Super Mario Brother. I think they played it. They played it for John Wick. Uh, they just played it for Guardians of the Galaxy. And then there's another movie I saw too before that. It came out around the time, and I saw, and like and every time I see that, it's just like, oh, it's that Schwartz guy. I forgot what his name is. The guy from Rushmore, which is also Wes Anderson. And I'm like, I haven't seen him since Scott Pilgrim. I'm like, oh, it's good to see that guy still getting a role. But like I said, like Tom Hanks is in there too, and I'm like, I felt let down when I saw the first trailer for this thing. I kept thinking it was gonna be like, oh, it's gonna be like maybe they're gonna do Fallout. Wouldn't that be awesome? You know, because it's a 1950s setting, and that it just I don't know. It just seems really out there. You know, like I mean, there are fans who love Edward Scissorhands. Like they just like that's their favorite movie. I'm like, and I look at it's like change channel. But yeah, so I mean, if you're looking for obscure movies to like, things that other people don't like, that's something that and then like sorry, and I'm not trying to throw a skip under the bus. We all have different tastes, and it kind of feels bad. I'm sure Skip's like, man, I really like Wes Anderson, and he's like, oh, RBD doesn't, it's not his cup of tea, so he's like, but after a while, you kind of get used to that, that feeling. You love Avatar. We do joke around more. I've never seen it. I really don't have an opinion either way. It's just something. It just doesn't appeal to me. It's like a Wes Anderson film. I just don't. It looks beautiful. I just don't care to see it. The movie. You know?
Mm.
And
Yeah,
maybe
well, I
one day
mean,
I will. Yeah.
that's a barrier for sure. I mean, we were talking about Murder Falcon. On the surface, you go, it's a weird looking. It looks like a chicken more than a falcon, but it's
It's
just
boo.
it's.
Animaniacs.
I got to be honest. I was actually more interested in Murder Falcon than I was Do a Power Bomb on the surface. Like, but it's one of those things. Sometimes you just have to get past the cover and go see it because sometimes what you think it is going to be is not what it is. And that can be good or bad. In the case of Life Aquatic, you're like, oh, I love Bill Murray, but then you went and saw it and like it did not match up like what your expectations were going to be. And that can be a big negative. But other times, it can win you over. And so maybe one day you will watch Avatar. And hopefully, if you do, you'll see it with an open mind because I get it. I mean, I don't care necessarily about blue aliens. I just love the way James Cameron tells stories, and no matter how he's telling the story, whether it's about a sinking ship in the Atlantic in the 20s, or whether it's about a robot from the future coming to kill humanity, um, or it's about blue aliens on a faraway planet, like whatever. His storytelling is why I like it, and so, like I said, maybe you'll see it one day and you'll like it,
Yeah.
or maybe you won't. I don't know, but regardless,
Yeah.
it's totally fine. Um, and I'm used
As far
to like people bagging on it. To me, I like roll my eyes because it's like it feels like it's the popular thing to hate on, and it always seems to be too like whatever's number one, like the champ. Everyone's got to take punches at the champ. Currently, it's Avatar, but one day it'll be something else. Um, and so that's what it is. Let's finish up. Don't want to skip anybody.
well,
Jay Lucian is also here. Jay, good to see you. He says, yo, yip, yo. And to heal
I'll,
him,
yeah.
29 says, good to see you all.
I was gonna say this when it comes to Avatar, like it made a box office rank, as far as the best view, the most watched, made the most money. But then, and a part of me is like, I know a lot of people who liked Napoleon Dynamite. I don't know what the numbers tickets sold on that, but like, I hate Napoleon
I
Dynamite.
hate Napoleon Dynamite.
It's like, I mean, a lot of people went to go see it, and like, and maybe got their other friends to see it, but like, for me, what's gonna convince me is when Avatar 3 comes out and see how much money that makes compared to this one. Because to me, I'm thinking like, well, part of it might be nostalgia. They're like, oh my gosh, it's been 20 years. I have to see this because I like the first film. I want to see what he does. And he's promising he's put all his money into it. You're almost like, you're curious. You want to see it. And like, now, whether people liked it, that's another matter. I said, but people did go see it. You know,
I think Avatar 2 might be better than Avatar 1. So
I would hope
it
so.
it, it doesn't surprise. Well, I think Avatar 1 dude, I
No,
saw
because
the re-release of Avatar 1, which they did, what was it, back in September? No, last November. They did that re-release. I went and saw that on IMAX because I had seen the film a bunch of times. Like I own the film. I've never seen it in IMAX. And it's been like 13 years. So I was like, oh, cool, I'll go see Avatar. Like, I'm not kidding you. That was the best theatrical experience I've had since I can remember, like in years. And I've had some good ones, like, the Top Gun Maverick was really good, seeing Dune in theaters was really good. I particularly loved seeing Tenet. I'm a big fan of Tenet, saw that in IMAX, that was a great experience. That was during COVID, like, it was the only movie I saw in theaters that year,
Yeah.
and so that happened to be, like, a big deal for me, and those were all great experiences. Seeing Avatar again, even though I had seen it before, but it had been years since my last viewing, it really held up. I was, like, blown away by just the storytelling. I was like, "Man, I'd forgotten. I've been watching all these MCU films and other stuff." I'm like, just James Cameron is a masterful director. And I know I'm a fanboy on it, and not everyone, sees it that way, but that film, I was like, this is better. In my opinion, this is better than anything I've seen in the past since this film came out. Like, it still 13 years later looks better than any film since. And I was like, I haven't even seen the sequel. And it wasn't until Avatar 2 that I was just like, oh geez. And I feel bad for people like yourself that just didn't get to see it in theaters, because there are most movies these days you can watch at home and get a decent experience, especially if you've got a big screen TV. But that movie on big screen, ooh, in 3D, it's just another experience. And yeah, I mean, I'm totally fanboying out, but it
The thing about movies that, oh, we get the chance to see it in theater. A lot of older movies are making their way back to theaters.
you know,
I've
I
noticed that.
missed I'm shooting myself, like, as they just recently had Return of the Jedi in theaters, and I didn't get to see it. And
I got to watch Ghostbusters in theaters. That was enough for me. When they had the 30th anniversary, they released it, the first one. I was able to
Mhm,
watch it in theaters. I was like, oh, it's awesome because, dude, like I was born '85, so
mhm.
I didn't get the chance to see Ghostbusters till I was like eight. To the second one came out '89, '90, right around there. I was only 4 and 5 years old, so getting to see it actually, on theater was a cool experience. Getting popcorn and all that stuff,
Yeah.
and just sit there,
That's a movie I
especially
would
now.
definitely go
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
want to go see in theaters again if it ever comes back. I would like to see
yeah.
more theaters do that, to be honest, especially if they could do it at, like, discounted tickets, because there's movies are getting real expensive these days. I go see far fewer movies than I used to. I used to go see movies, like, almost every weekend, and nowadays, I mean, tickets are, like, 15 bucks. And I don't like to I'm not one of these people that just go and sit and have a movie. Like, I wanna have, like, a drink and a snack and everything, so I'm paying, like, 30 bucks to see a movie.
Oh,
That's
I stopped doing the drinks because a lot of movies are now becoming 2 and 2.5 hour movies. So I'm like, I'm not drinking anything before. I made that mistake with John Wick 4. Didn't realize it was going to be that long. I'm like, oh, I'll go watch it, and I was like, 3/4 of the way of the film, I was like, I had to go bad. I was just like, I can't go. So I fought the urge, like, and it's all because I had a small soda. It pushed me over the edge.
well,
But I would
you got a
recommend though,
you got a
if you get
sensitive
anything in theater,
bladder, I guess.
I'm an old man. That's what it is.
I still fortunate I can, as long as I go to the bathroom before the movie, I can drink a big, large drink and make it through 3 hours, like, as long as my bladder goes in, if I go in empty, um, I I I won't need to. So, I don't typically have a problem, but, whatever the case is, I just, like I said, to me, going to the movies is about, like, it's the experience. It's like going out. Like, I don't wanna go out and skimp it. Like, to me, I'm just like, "What's the point? Just might as well stay home." If I'm gonna go out, I wanna feel like I wanna splurge a little bit, I wanna be able to, like, munch some popcorn and have a soda.
Well,
To me,
I
that's
do
just,
splurge. I get those $7 pretzel bites.
oh, there we go. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I yeah, like I said, I've learned just to get the pretzel bites, and that's enough for me. I can eat those, and I can enjoy the movie. Like that's my treat. I don't go for the candy because I, I don't like people who make noise with the candy boxes, so I'm not gonna do that to somebody else. But I've also learned that it's cheaper to go during the day than it is at night.
for
It's less
sure, go
crowded.
see the matinees, yeah, but even then, like, I don't know, you're in Wisconsin, so you probably
Yeah.
still have the non-ridiculous prices. Out here in California, man, everything is just inflated. You can't even you can't even get a basic value meal at a fast food place for under $10 anymore. I was just noticing that. I was like, let me see what the cheapest meal is at with the most basic burger, fries, and a drink. Oh, it's $10 plus. And then like the better ones are like 12, $13. I'm just like, this is stupid. Just like a couple years ago, it felt like you could get a meal like $7.99. So, when you do that, you add, a one-time purchase, that's not that big of a deal. But when it's like 30 days out of the month, that extra cost, it just hits you. So yeah, like I said, going to the movies, spending $30. Nowadays, I'm just more choosy. I just, it's going to be the movies I really, really want to see. So, like
Yeah,
Guardians of
I
the
mean,
Galaxy will be one of those, and Dune Part 2 coming out in November will be my other big
Equal.
deal.
I'm debating if I want to watch Equalizer 3 in the theater or not.
I still haven't seen
That's
Equalizer
gonna be
2.
uh well, it's I thought for compared to I think I still like the first one the best, but the second one I thought it wrapped up pretty nicely at the end. I was like, okay, what do we need on? Now I'm seeing the third one. It's just like, what is going on here? It's like, they're gonna try and do the third one here, but I'm like, even the even the crappiest Equalizer movie sequel with what's his name, Denzel Washington, it's better than the TV show. That's my hope. But because
I
Denzel,
enjoyed I
he's got to be
enjoyed
in
the
his
first.
60s, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I enjoyed the first Equalizer. And I'll watch the second one. Like I just never got around to it. It just wasn't a high
Still,
priority movie for me. It was one of those movies that I was like, okay, that was fun. Not something I'm gonna go out of my way for, but
uh,
I had a positive experience. So if the
I
third one
mean,
comes out, I'll probably catch it on whenever streaming service it goes to eventually.
I have positive, interactions with it or positive receptions when it comes to basically Denzel Washington movies. I've noticed that he can take. He's one of those actors. He can thrive in a bad movie. His acting. I mean, but
Yeah, I mean
even
he's got
even
he's one of
yeah,
those rare actors that is both a really powerful on-screen presence, like his charisma, but
yeah,
also is a really powerful actor. Because typically you're one or the other. You're like you're a Heath Ledger type who's just really great actor, but you don't necessarily have like this super powerful on-screen performance. Or you
yeah.
might be like an Arnold Schwarzenegger who's got this great commanding performance on screen, can't act worth a shit. Um, but yeah, people like Denzel are one of those anomalies that it's kind of both. And you're right, he elevates every movie he's in.
That's why
Um,
I said on the Extreme Movie Show yesterday. We're talking about that as far as when it comes to acting. Uh, I think certain actors should they would benefit more, especially like if you're gonna do another Conan reboot, have someone who looks the role but says few words. To me, that works better than having someone all this needless kind of jokey dialogue, and it just kind of makes the movie worse. Because I thought for Conan, him being silent, the whole thing it worked better. You had Mako, that guy, the actor, doing the narration over everything. You had the other actors, and it's just like I said, everything that worked in that movie. If you stick to that formula, you can do a proper reboot. But but I don't know. I said certain roles. If you've always said this part too, is that when it comes to certain movies, it will never be the same as the original. Evil Dead is one of those things. You can make another Evil Dead, but it's not going to be Evil Dead. It's just going to be something that that has the title. Bruce Campbell is Evil Dead.
yeah.
Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. Tom Cruise is basically the guy from Mission Impossible. He's also the guy from Top Gun. He's Maverick. Trying to put somebody else in someone else made it huge. It's never gonna fly. They tried to do a Solo. Now, obviously, Solo, if you do a young enough thing, maybe you can do it. possibly, but like they tried to do a Young Indiana Jones, even that didn't work as well. But it's just certain roles or for movies, they only work because of that character, that actor, and
See,
and
I'm
storytelling.
not on 100% alliance with you on that, and let me explain why. So I agree with you on the Evil Dead, and but here's a big difference between like Evil Dead and say like Indiana Jones. Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of the best movies ever made. It's just a great movie. Now, is Harrison Ford awesome in it? Absolutely. Is he iconic? Of course. Evil Dead, Evil Dead 1 was really just it got popular because it was so bad. And people it became a cult classic because people like to make fun of it. It was like America Chavez. It was like so bad it was funny. And so Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell and their genius like decided let's capitalize on it. And when they made Evil Dead 2, they like intentionally stepped on the gas and just made it more ridiculous and stupid and schlocky and
Well,
just
they
and
had
it
to change it because they lost the rights to the first movie.
I don't know the details about that, but
Yeah,
in
that
seeing
was
interviews with them, they talked about how the original movie they tried to make a serious horror movie.
yeah, yeah. It didn't
In the
really fly
second
well.
movie, they were like the reason the thing that people loved most about the first one was making fun of it and like this silliness, like unintentionally funny parts.
Hmm.
And so they said, well, let's just try to replicate that. Let's do more of that. And of course, and it worked. And what we have is history. But what I'm going though is the Evil Dead films were never known for just being great movies. They were a Bruce Campbell vehicle. Like you saw
Yeah.
it because Bruce Campbell. It didn't matter how bad the movie was. Bruce Campbell. But Raiders of the Lost Ark was great. You could have had someone different than Harrison Ford. It still would have been a really good film, right? So I think you can potentially cast Harrison Ford. I use the Bond example. One time Sean Connery was iconic James Bond. There was no one else but Sean Connery. And we showed that we could have someone different. I think Indiana Jones could be potentially that way. But certain films, like one of the reasons this talked about my Discord, we were talking about Condor Man, and people like, are we making Condor Man? Like, why would you do that? Like, no one wants to see everything that made Condor Man work was because it was the product of that time. It was that way. I don't think you can remake that. You could make it like serious and like better, but that's not why people like it. Like they like it because it's goofball and weird, and it
I
worked
think
in that period of time.
they reboot. The reason they would change or reboot is because there's people like me have never heard of that movie. I'm 37. There's people younger than I, or people my age. You might be a little older that never once saw it. So they take advantages of that. As I said, that's why they're able to do certain reboots. Now, will they make money? Yes, sometimes. Sometimes they're better than the originals.
Well, here's the thing:
Uh,
you've never heard of or seen Condor Man for a
nope.
reason. Like it's not because there's this great movie out there that you're missing out on, Venkman. It
Well,
was one of those things that when you're 7 years old in the 80s, it works for you. But you're not 7 years old and you're not in the 80s. So maybe you would still get a kick out of seeing it just because, but it was just at the time it was what it was and it was cool and that's it and we moved on. We can't recreate the 80s today. The kids today don't see the world the way kids in the 80s did. I just so you could totally reimagine it, and sometimes that works, but
how you want to know
if
how
you're
you
gonna
create the '80s?
if you're gonna do that, if you're gonna totally reimagine it and make it all like maybe serious or do whatever, why even make it Condor Man? Just make a new property. Like,
Because they figure like it's so easier to take somebody else's property and do what they want to do it. Like I said, there's some politics in there too. But it's just people are just so lazy. Like that's
yeah.
why we have five reboots or adaptations of a book that was written like in the 1800s. Great Gatsby is gonna have like 30 different versions now. uh, Moby's Dick. Remember Moby Dick? And now it's called Moby's Dick. Idiocracy, man. it's so easy to take an existing property and just put your own spin on it, and versus trying to actually have an actual writer come up and create something original. It's just too hard. So we got to take an existing IP and then bend it to what we want it to be, and just like today's writers with comic books, man.
Austin makes an interesting comment. He says, "I don't know. My generation ate up Stranger Things." Now, Austin,
Yeah.
here's the thing: Stranger Things is not 80s fiction. It's modern day fiction that's using the 80s to be nostalgic. Much like when I was growing up, like one of my favorite Christmas movie of all time is Christmas Story. And one of the things in the movie Christmas Story, for those of you seen it, is it so well captures like the 60s, like growing up, and I think it's the early 60s, yeah. Um, it basically was my parents' generation when they were kids. Now, I didn't grow up in that time, but as a kid in the 80s, that film really worked for me. And I think that's what's happening now is you're making a modern telling films or sorry, a show and you're just using that time period to be like kind of cool and retro and it's really well done. I mean, Stranger Things is just really well done. So it's going to work and it's not a remake. If they try to remake Stranger Things 20 years from now, it's going to be one of those things like, really? What are we doing?
Well, it's something that you know what it is. It reminds me of Stranger Things. Stranger Things is a better version of what we what's we look at 19 as far as 80s movies or anything that takes place in the 80s. Wonder Woman 84 had nothing to do with the 80s. Stranger Things is a story that takes place in the 80s. Does their research. It ties well into stuff that he had in the 80s. All the nostalgia serials, riding the bicycle, having the card, inside your the playing card in your spokes, uh, generating the flashlight, that's on your bike leg, by pedaling, like everything. They took something, basically a decade that everybody loves, and wrote a story that takes place in that. Um, Now, regardless, is that original idea? Their idea, as far as the sci-fi cut, was original, but writing a movie that takes place in the 80s is a concept that's been done before. But I would say they did well for what they intended out to do, and like I said, continue it. Now, Stranger Things basically being on its final season. Will there be spin-offs? Maybe, sure, if they want to milk it, it could. But what's the next big thing now? Because are we gonna have a show that takes place during the 70s? You know, it's like I love the 80s, man. I mean, I love like I was born 85, so I mean, I in the early 90s, I remember being like 6 7 years old, 91 92, and just we still had stuff left over from the 80s culture, and it kind of went into the 90s. And I just something was stuck with me the other day. I was watching an interview with Vanilla Ice, and he said the '90s was the last time stuff was created for music and this culture itself. Today he said, Mike, he's like my kids are wearing stuff that we wore in the '90s, in the '80s. We're basically stuck. Uh, we're not moving forward as far as with basically creating a new iconic era. If anything, it's just the point where creativity is dead. Um, Not when it comes to the music scene, I guess you'd say, but I mean, our culture, a little bit, it's, but that's, I mean, that's going down a rabbit hole because there's other reasons why it is that way. But I don't know, man. Like I said, would I love to see another Indiana Jones? Maybe, well, like I said, but my thing is like, who I would want to see. I mean, I get that, and I might get something to today's writers, especially now with the writer strike. Movies that were not finished, and if they do get someone coming in, maybe you'll be a better writer than before. But I'm comfortable right now. It's like with the writers on strike, it means like, oh, no more new shows, no more new movies. I'm comfortable with going back and watching stuff in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, and 80s, and even the 90s. That stuff I've not watched. It's like comic books. We have back issues, back movie, backlog of movies, TV shows I can watch. So I
Yeah.
mean, not the poo, not the piss on the people who basically are trying to get a better wage or whatever. Although when I see a guy going out there buying, spending like a thousand to almost $1 million on pizzas for people at the thing, and they're asking for higher wages, I'm thinking, if you can afford that, it's
Right.
but yeah, I don't know.
I
It's
I like obviously I like Indiana Jones. I think it could become like a Bond franchise. I think the type of film that it is set up to just be that sort of reoccurring because it's an adventure film
yeah,
and it has certain tropes that I think work really well. I love having it set in the pre-war 30s,
it has to
you
be
know,
there.
right
Yep.
before World War II started, where the Nazis were coming, and I just love this idea that Indiana Jones goes after these, you know, mostly biblical artifacts, but they're supposed to just be mythological things, and the Nazis are looking for them too because they want the power and whatever, and it just makes for fun adventure stories. And the problem with keeping Harrison Ford in the role, like this newest film, I'm like, the new film takes place almost, it's like like 5 years before I was born. I'm like, what? It's going to be in the late '60s. I'm like, what? I'm struggling wrapping my head around this. So
Well,
I don't think that's a good idea. I don't really. No one wants to see geriatric Grandpa Indiana Jones anyway. I love Harrison Ford. I don't have like nothing against him, but just sometimes let's move on. The same reason we don't have Grandpa, you know, playing Jesus 007. You know, some the actors got to move on. We get someone new, and it sometimes it's not the best. Like sometimes we go, I don't like this new guy as much, and that'll probably be the case. Whoever if they were to replace Harrison Ford, we'd probably go, he's not as good as Harrison Ford. But
like Harrison
what
Ford, you
matters
can have.
is it good enough? Can we get good stories? And we go, I still miss Harrison, but whatever. Um,
I want that if they're gonna do this movie, I would love to be like in the vein of the third movie. Now he's the father, and he's basically
well, they tried to
now
do that with Indiana Jones
Shia
4,
LaBeouf.
and everyone hated it.
Well, that's because they did the whole aliens bit too. That's what really ruined it for me.
See, I
Uh,
liked it. I mean, I was into it, man. The crystal skulls are real. Like,
I know they
I'm
are, but
like,
I'm
they made
like
them. I was like, when I saw that
aliens.
they were putting crystal skulls, and I was like, oh, dude, there's gonna be an alien at the end. I was like, and so when they showed the ship at the end, I was like, yes, because that's the whole thing about the crystal skulls. Indiana Jones is about that. It's about these artifacts are real. You know, like when he finds the Ark of the Covenant, it's not just something that a bunch of Jews made up to like pull a scam on people.
Yeah,
It has the tablets of, from Mount Sinai, like, and they open it up and it kills like it.
yeah.
That's I think that that mythos that makes it interesting, and I'm fine with
But,
aliens. But if somebody it didn't work for
but
some people, so be it. But the Shia LaBeouf, first of all, I think he got a bad rap in that film. I think he was way
I
better in that film than people give him credit for. Um,
I would
but
have
oh
had
well.
I would have had a different actor, more serious actor than Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf is a serious actor.
Even Steven's kid.
Dude, you need to see Fury. You own this movie. It's about time you watch it. It's good. He was also really good in Wall Street too. Shia LaBeouf, man,
I watched him in Lawless. They didn't like him in that either.
Lawless was just a freaking horrible movie.
I You know
There
what I
was no
liked?
saving that movie.
Guy Pierce in Lawless. I liked.
That movie had like
uh,
such a great cast, and it was just dog shit.
Jessica Chastain is in there too. I think and
Tom
Tom
Hardy,
Hardy.
yeah, like
Yep.
no, it was
um,
awful.
but Indiana Jones, that another Indiana Jones that takes place in the '60s, you could still have him fighting against Nazis. There were Nazis, on the lam, hidden out. I don't think they were all rounded up. I'm sure a few
Yeah,
managed
but
to
I don't
get
want that. I
away.
want the Nazis, not they're in Argentina hiding
Nazis.
out. Like make it, you got to keep it in that era. It's like it's just the way that it works. And as far as like Indy being the old guy, like replacing his father in that role, no, I don't want to see that's legacy. I don't want that. I don't want to be like. And I think that's why the Shia LaBeouf thing didn't work. In part, was because people are like, "Who's this guy?" I want Indiana Jones. I don't want his like stepson or whatever the kid is. Like they don't want
They
that.
just just wanted Indiana Jones by himself. Um,
Yeah.
but as far as movies
They
that
want
take
the
place,
authentic. They want the real
m-
deal, not the up
movies
and comer wannabe.
movies that take place in the 30s. Give me a Phantom. I want the Phantom. I want another the Shadow, or what's it called? The Rocketeer. Give me the Dave
Rocketeer.
Stevens, the
Yeah.
Dave Stevens Rocketeer with Betty Page. You know, um, I'm just so glad we dodged the bullet with the last. They're talking about redoing the Rocketeer, but they were gonna race swap and just do put a lot of the Disney spin into it,
Yeah. Nope.
and it never went anywhere. Again, like it was like nope, just fell dead. Uh, but yeah, like I said, Rocketeer is it's a guy with a rocket pack on his back, and he's got a girl that loves him, and she's a model. She could have any guy she wants, but she wants him. She's loyal to him.
Yep.
He's like trying to do his best to basically battle against all the criminals without being shot at, and he's got his loyal friend, who's a mechanic, is almost a father mentor to him, and just like I love that, and you can have all the spooks, the government agents, so you can do that. It's like you can even have him team up with the Phantom for crying out loud if you really wanted to. Um, but like I said, I go back to the being like people are like, well, people still be like, I didn't like the Billy Zane Phantom. I thought the Billy Zane Phantom was pretty good. I enjoyed it for what it
That's
was.
okay.
Yeah, okay.
Uh,
See,
I mean, no, I
um,
didn't hate it, but it just it
I'm not
suffered
an
from
Alec Baldwin.
it suffered from what the problem like all superhero movies back then suffered for. They just they Hollywood didn't it was almost like Hollywood was embarrassed to be making comic book movies, and it always showed in the movie itself, right? And it always felt like they weren't really proud of what they were doing. And so they would make this product that was kind of like, yeah, and it was like, it, I'm so glad for what Sam Raimi did with Spider-Man because that opened up the doors. It like opened the floodgates and said, you know what? You can just make a superhero film and you don't have to be embarrassed by it. Just go full bore, make it, and it's out there and people love it. And it just when once audiences it became mainstream, then you saw like Hollywood being like, oh, they aren't making fun of us for making these movies. They actually really like them. Um, but before that, every film suffered from that for the most part, and to varying degrees, some more than others. But I
I
think
like
Phantom was a little bit of that, and I think if we made a Phantom today, you could make it a lot better because you wouldn't have to be so restrained.
well, yeah, I'm sure you can do a lot more stuff. My only fear is, as I said, like who they decided to put on as their creative team. I've noticed it, and honestly, the Flash last week's episode was amazing. I looked who the director and the writers were. All of them were men. This week, oh, this is the second part of the. It's supposed to be a 4-part thing, for the season finale. And I'm looking like, oh, this week is directed by a woman and written by 2 women. And oh, look, it focuses on the girls and not the Flash. It's like, this is my problem. It's like we gotta have a girl writing it. We gotta have a girl directing it. It's like, dude, I don't care about representation. If if this girl is a good writer, now I said I don't know. This could be a bad story, this episode, but my experience is I've seen this. There's a pattern in this, and I don't hate women, but I mean, if you suck at writing, I don't care what gender or what nationality you're from, what you call yourself, what you identify as, you suck. That's the hard reality. You suck at something, you suck at something. You can you can try to reinvent yourself, say blame other people, but it comes down to it. Talent is only with people who have talent. If you don't have the talent, maybe try something else, or try you know just going into a different field, man. Like I said, never give up on your dreams, but you should gotta realize that sometimes maybe your idea of what you think is good may not be everybody else's idea.
Some
It's just like I was like, oh, this is a great Oz. They're gonna and people are speculating they're gonna introduce like Cold Blue Flash. into it.
Speaking of
And
sucking and
why would
legacy
you?
characters, you
I'm,
already
I'm
I
trying to.
passed
I'm
my
trying to.
segue like 10 miles back.
I wish.
But
I wish I would have left with that segue. We're going into Dan Slott.
so legacy
It's
and
erratic.
suck. It's so apparently Marvel's introducing new character Spider-Boy. Now, I've been saying for the longest time that Miles Morales should not be Spider-Man. And you and I have had this debate back and forth. He needs a new name, and you push the name Kid Arachnid, which I can't stand. But I was like, I go, Spider Boy is right in front of them. Like, just call Miles Spider Boy. You have Spider Man, Spider Boy, perfect. Marvel, of course, doesn't want to do that for whatever reason, and I'm thinking, well, maybe they just don't like the name Spider Boy. Now here we get, they're actually introducing a new Spider character, Spider Boy, and I'm like, great. So now we've got Spider Man, other Spider Man, and Spider Boy.
And Spider
Um,
Woman and Spider Woman and Spider Girl and Spider Girl, Spider Gwen.
Silk.
That's what I mean. There's Jessica Drew, Spider Woman. Then there's the other girl, Julie Carpenter, Spider Woman. And then there is that other girl, Irene, who's also Spider Girl. Mayday Parker, Spider Girl. We have Gwen Stacy, Spider Girl.
So the new Dan Slott series, just called Spider Man, which is supposed to be continuing the Todd McFarlane Spider Man series, which to me is
Oh,
just completely asinine. Like Todd McFarlane did his thing. No one wants to
very
see that
serious.
series continued without Todd McFarlane. Like going back to linking what we were speaking of earlier about how things were a product of their time, whatever. Adjectiveless Spider-Man was one of those things that only existed because of Todd McFarlane. And people only got it because of Todd McFarlane. And once he left, that series ended. Like there's no point of that series to exist. It was just a vehicle to show off Todd McFarlane. Like, why are we
Like,
now resurrecting it 30 years later for Dan Slott of all people?
I would see. I don't understand this at Disney. Like, you have rights to. You own Fox. You can do stories like. So you want to do a Spider-Man story? Do the '90s Spider-Man cartoon. You can even connect it to the Spider-Man Unlimited and whatever you want to do. Like, it's just like there's so many different things they could connect and do a story from. But they would rather go to a Todd McFarlane story, and without getting Todd McFarlane, we're just gonna have basically f things up. I mean, DC was smart. I mean, they brought back a story as it was even though it was a miniseries, they went into the Justice League Unlimited verse and did a story with that, and it sold. I don't understand why Marvel has such a hard time concept. You have all your Disney XD cartoons. Why aren't you connecting comic books to those? Kids watch those.
I have no
Give them some
idea.
comic books. Like I
I don't
said,
know. I, I'm just like, now Spider Boy is a thing. The name is being used. Because before, the only argument I had is maybe they just hate the name Spider Boy. They don't want to use it. Okay, fine. But they're using the name Spider Boy and they're not applying it to. We already have a Spider Boy, essentially, Miles Morales. Like,
is this one gay?
well,
You're gonna
uh,
age him up. He's the new Spider
I will
Man.
say not yet, because
Spider Man.
everyone in Marvel is potentially gay. It's just a matter of when. Um,
Uh,
so yeah, I don't know what I think about this. I think the costume looks stupid. Like they gave him like multiple eyes because spiders have lots of eyes, so they put that on the mask. Um,
like the colors. I'm sorry, the color scheme. That's erratic.
well, it's Spider-Man's colors.
And a lot of people pointed out is that the editing has been so bad on this that whenever they draw Spider Boy, his color scheme changes from panel to panel. Like they forget he's supposed to have red on his legs, and it'll be all blue, and and it'll be reversed. It's like what? Like, are they? That's just that lazy. I don't
I'm
know.
just so tired. I'm so tired
That
of
that post
copycat characters. Like I totally understand Dan Didio. Like I just
like
Dan Didio is right. Just we need to kill them all. It's out of
so
control.
I want to point out, Ash, if you add a tail to this character, actually Spider-Man's leg almost like a tail, and it's erratic.
Oh,
That post.
it does. This is actually I was going to point this out. This is really bad art. The editor should have sent this back. You see here, um, on Spider Boy's knee, we have Spider Man's
Yeah,
leg protruding out. This is called a
yeah.
tangent. This is a big no-no in comics because comics is 2D art, and when your eyes just kind of glance at it, you don't want anyone to have to put effort into seeing the image, and it can kind of look like the kid's got like his leg, like it's Spider-Man's leg is part of his, and he's just like got his leg kicking up in the air.
Like, I mean, I do how they draw Spider-Man himself. It's more kind of cartoonish, but like the Spider-Boy thing, it's like, yeah, we're gonna throw the kid in front of you because this is all about Spider-Boy. This isn't your This is your dad's comic book. This is aimed for cool kids.
Well, this is an article about
Uh,
Spider Boy. So they used a picture for the article, of
from
course,
the
highlighting Spider
well,
Boy.
it's
I'm not going
probably
to
from the
fault that. But this is just a
well, no,
bad
no.
overall picture that an editor, which admittedly Marvel doesn't have any editors that know what they're doing, should have sent this back and just been like, this is a major no no. An old
This is
school
probably
Marvel,
they
Jim
felt,
Shooter
yeah.
era Marvel, that have been like, no. These tangents are just unacceptable, especially you consider that Spider Man and Spider Boy have the same color scheme. It's like,
Like
ah.
recipe. I didn't know I entered a Richard Meyer stream.
Oh man. Austin says Dan Didio was right. Ash 2023. Yep, he was, man. Didio was right. Um, so anyways, I just saw this and I just was my eyes rolled back into my head. And so
Yeah,
I just
and
figured
yeah.
we we talk about it. You're the big Spider-Man fan. I thought you'd have more comments on this.
It is basically. It looks like they use the style of Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon for this book here, at least from this panel. This looks like it's basically a page right out of the interior of the book. It's on a cover, but then again, dear God, we've seen covers. But we couldn't call Miles Spider Boy because that'd be racist. But we'll get this random kid here with shoes that aren't even tied. There's no shoelaces. I don't know how his powers work. And he's from an alternate universe. Yeah. It's like I just feel like this character is just gonna go away.
Oh, I'm sure he will. But
I
but the problem is
the with the
not going to go away until Dan Slott goes away, and Dan Slott just never seems to go
it,
away.
it feels like Dan Stott's trying to run interfere for Zeb Wells. Look at me, I can make more shit worse than you. The current Spider-Man book. Look what we're doing over with Bendis Jr., I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Is there anything else going on in the world of comics or movies or shows or anything of that like that
Not really comic books, but I'd say I just finished the last episode of what's it called? Rabbit Hole, Kuiper Sutherland.
Oh yeah?
Oh
And
my,
how'd that
the
wrap up?
actors, Peter, wonderful. Peter Weller's in there. We see to see Lance Henriksen in the last episode.
Nice.
Oh, it's just like they're just bringing back like big school, like movie icons, just coming back in there. And like I said, it is just a fun show. Um, it's basically you are kind of going through a rabbit hole. You're like, what's reality, what's not reality, who can you trust in the world of spies, Illuminati, and stuff. And like I said, I love it because it's just when you think at the end, you're like, oh, you mean this wasn't really the thing we were looking for? There's more to it. It's like obviously they're gonna do a second season. I do recommend it for those who like 24. I've never seen 24, but unlike 24, this show appealed to me. I watched it
24 would
all the way
probably
through.
appeal to you.
24, it's just like like I
You're
said,
saying I would recommend this for people who like 24, although I've never seen 24 and it doesn't appeal to me. That doesn't make sense.
well,
Like either they're
no,
related and like the fans of both would like, like, or they're not. It's
I'm
like,
assuming you guys. I'm assuming if you were a Carver Sutherland fan, you liked it 24. You're gonna like this too. If you like shows that basically that make you think, that make you actually gets you involved. You have incentive to go back and watch it each week. This is a show like that, and with Carver Sutherland, no matter what character he's playing, it's always captivating performance. And then the surrounding cast in this too, conspiracy, FBI, CIA, and just Illuminati, all that stuff wrapped up to 8 episodes, and you have to pay attention because there are clues, but there are also red herrings.
cool. I'm gonna look forward to check that out. I just don't have Paramount, so in
It's
the
okay.
future, one day when I get some Paramount Plus, I'll make sure to check it out. Um, in the meantime, one of the things I've been reading, got up on the screen here, and I wanted to actually do this for the show or do a review of it. I cannot find. There's no digital copies of this comic, so
Hold up with your hands and the camera.
yeah. But so not even comicsology. Like you just, part of me is kind of glad for that. I think that's what comics needs is to go away from digital, like get people out to actually buy comics. But this is called Astrobots, and it is by, from my understanding, the creators of the old Transformers comics from Marvel back in the 80s. Um, And I was a fan of Transformers in the 80s. I wouldn't say that I was like a major fan. I didn't like buy the Transformers comics, not because I thought they were dumb, but because as a child in the 80s and I had limited funds, I can only buy certain comics. And I was like, why am I going to buy the comics? I got the cartoon show every day after school. Like, I didn't, and so that was. And that's maybe that what it was. When this comic was coming out, people were seeming like really hyped about it. And I was like, I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna buy the first issue and see. Apparently, there's a toy line. This is going with this. Um, so I bought the first issue and really enjoyed it. Um, I want to talk about it just a little bit. I want to mention it because the fact that it is not digital, and it is because it's from a small little publisher called Whatnot. Um, I've never seen any of the other books, and it's a cool story. It's a sci-fi story. You got these characters that are called the Astrobots, and while they look very similar to the Transformers um, from the comic book and the old cartoons, they are not Transformers. They're just AI machines that were created by the human race. And what happens is the humans send them out into the galaxy, in some faraway planet or whatever to terraform it, and then a colony ship is sent out um, to go, and then the robots are there terraforming the planet, and their job is to get it done before the colony ship arrives. And so that's where the first issue of the comic opens up, and you're getting introduced to these certain characters. And what you see here on the screen, this is what the interior art looks like. I don't have many. I couldn't find like pages to show you, but the art that you it, that's what the interior art looks like. It's really cool looking art. The comic itself, as the 3.99 comic, I was super impressed with the production values. Every single page was the quality of paper that like Marvel uses for their covers. Now we kind of make fun of like Marvel covers because like it's like the cover, but it's every page is that way. It's really high quality paper for an interior page. The outer is poster board, not poster board. The card stock. It's just and it's only 3.99. They're not trying to rape you over the coals. Like I was really impressed with that. And like I said, the art inside, I was like, this is a product I can get behind. It's an indie book. I realize it's not going to be for everyone, but if you're looking at it and you're thinking Transformers don't only like aesthetically do the robots kind of look similar, But what's interesting is there's a little bit of like politics in it because as you're reading the story and they're kind of the first issue is very world building, you're starting to get this impression that there's trouble under the surface, that the AI, these robots, these astrobots aren't all on the same page, on the same side. Like their factions have formed and the colony ship is coming and it feels like there's a there's like classes, like the bots have formed classes, this is a part that does seem similar to Transformers. The Decepticons and the Autobots, and the Decepticons decided we're going to be the ruling class, and the Autobots became the oppressed class. There is a bit of similarity to that, but it's like bubbling under the surface, and so it kept me intrigued. Um, and also another part of the plot. Well, I don't want to say too much about the plot, but there's another part that was pretty cool. Um, and I was like, you know what? I'm just having really fun with this. I loved buying a book that, again, that you were talking about before. Is outside of my wheelhouse. This isn't something I would normally pick up, but as I'm flipping through the pages, I'm really enjoying the quality of the book. And I don't read many physical books these days anymore. And I was just like, I just felt good about having the book. I felt like they weren't trying to rape me with the price. They were putting out a really quality product. I felt the story was pretty solid. Not the best thing I've ever read. I'm not going to try to hype it up that much. Like but it was good. It was entertaining, and it made me want to get to the next book. And I kind of feel good about owning it because it's a small print. So from a collectible standpoint, um, anyways, yeah. So that's all. Astrobots. If you aren't reading it, maybe this is something that you might want to check out. And like I said, I bring it to your attention because it came out this past week. Small print run. You don't want to wait too long to try to get it because once these go into back issues, they're probably going to be super hard to find and expensive. But your comic book store can probably still order you copies of these currently. Um, and Austin says they made Starscream a gray Dorito. What? That's another thing too about this book. There's no like weird like current day politics in the like you know what I'm saying? Like it's refreshing. There's no oh this person's gay and this person like oh like there's none of that. Like it's escapism. This is a far future world. It's not even on Earth. They're dealing with their own stuff. There's no one saying, "Well, my pronouns are this." None of that. Anyways, that's fun, and I hate the fact that I have to mention that as a quality piece, but that's where we are today.
I really do hope we get an issue with a trans robot. I want to see him with a bolt
Man,
on.
don't ruin it for me. Uh, so that's one of the things that's been on my mind, and RDV has been really big on Rabbit Hole. Believe me, behind the scenes, it's all he talks about. So give that a shot if anyone has access to that book
eight,
or to that
eight
show.
episodes. You can binge watch it, but I would say maybe wait a little bit in between each episode. You can really just like take in stuff. Um, you might have to watch it like the first episode or two a little bit. You know, basically, if you watch the series, I really do recommend going back and watching it again to see what stuff that you kind of miss because you may miss some things. But I like it when you have shows that actually make you actually like you actually have to sit there and you're like, oh my gosh, this is kind of intriguing. Like you actually have to use your brain. I mean, I do love popcorn stuff, but like you know,
Mhm.
it is an espionage intellectual show. So
Speaking of popcorn stuff that you don't have to use your brain, tonight's feature comic from the dawn of DC with one magic word Shazam! Just like that intro. I worked on it all day. Not really. I just kind of improved it.
oh oh hold on a second.
Thank you very much. All right, so we're featuring Shazam tonight as one of the comics we're talking about. This was a book that RDV suggested that we do, and he said, "You know
Yeah.
what? It's Mark Wade, and I know how you feel about Mark Wade, but get over it." And it's Shazam, and I know how you feel about Shazam, but get over it. And I was like, all right, we'll do it. We'll do it. So
It's we're kind of like it gives it a chance because before we used to recommend each books to each other, to try out. So that's our wheelhouse. And I know this. We were looking for a second book. I'm like this is a new number one. It's a good start. It's a good jumping on point. Versus like if I were to tell you like, hey, I know you haven't been reading Batman the Joker Deadly Duo, but you should go check and read all 7 issues and come back and review those. And like this is a less of a chore. Unless you hate Mark Wade, then I guess it's equal.
I'm not a fan of Mark Waid as a person, but
Well, I
I
mean,
do
as a writer, though.
recognize that he is one of the more talented writers in mainstream comics of the past 20 years. So, for sure. In fact, what amazes me is that Bendis rose so huge, and they're kind of around the same time. I think Wade and Bendis, if I recall, like kind of came
Mhm.
into popular around the same time. Wade might have preceded Bendis a little bit, but um, I think Wade's better. just just a better writer. Like it's amazing to me that Bendis sort of became the superstar. But right off the bat, I'm gonna tell you one thing that I love about this book. You see this cover? This cover is exactly what the interior of the book looks like. Like they didn't go and hire someone to do some painted cover, this or that, or what. Like what you see on a cover is what you get in the book. If you like what you see, if you look at this cover and go, "Oh, that looks appealing to me," there's probably a good chance that the book is going to be appealing to you.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not. My only experience with Captain Marvel is what I've read as far as like in not his own. I've never really read his main book. I've read Captain Marvel in when he appeared in the Justice League Brouhaha, Justice League International. He's kind of the butt of the joke. But I've also seen his interaction in the animated movies, and then seeing the live action with Zachary Levi. I've never taken the chance to go back and read the Marvel family, like or so that back in the day under Charlton, comics, or even when they brought him back. I think Jeff Johns even wrote a back in the day,
He did a
early 2000s.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he also did a rebirth Shazam.
yeah. I've read the last Shazam book before this. I read this was a little mini series, and like it was okay, but
Who likes Shazam? You
this,
should check out the Jeff Johns Shazam he did
yeah.
during Rebirth. I heard a lot of positive things. I just didn't read it
Yeah.
because I just didn't like Shazam. I was like,
Well, that's me. I've Shazam's been like one of those characters. Like, yeah, I can go without it. I mean, like, yeah, I watched the where he showed it Superman versus Shazam and Black Adam that thing, but it's like, wasn't it? It didn't really appeal to me. So, like I said, I think I've basically like it's worn down my defenses watching the Shazam movies and stuff like that, and seeing like,
mhm.
oh, yeah. So I want to give this a shot too. This is the first time reading for me as well. I gotta say, it opens up kind of kooky and a little crazy.
It opens up very kooky and crazy. Um,
I love the dinosaur art though. Oh
I'm
no,
I-
it's
I'm curious. I'm curious what Breen would think about this comic.
well. Brandon
Um,
said he likes a little older version of this. He said it wasn't bad comic, but he just said for him personally, he likes the more older, mature.
so one
Uh,
thing. Oh, you like more mature.
yeah.
Oh, see, I appreciated this book. Here's the thing. I don't. The difficulty that I have with Shazam is I get what they're doing with Shazam, and I don't want them to change it for me. Like I appreciate, but the thing is, if if they keep it authentic the way I think Shazam should be, then it's a character that I don't particularly resonate with. Right? It's like Barbie. I don't want them to change Barbie. Barbie's cool. Like I have no interest in Barbie, but
Mhm.
the people who do like Barbie, little girls or whatever, like keep it for them. And so I do like the idea that Captain Marvel is essentially little Billy Batson inside. He's got the body of an adult, right? On the out his physical features,
But
but
he's a 12-year-old.
he's a little
Yeah.
12, yeah, he's a little 12-year-old kid. Like I like that. I mean, I don't like it. I appreciate that, and I don't want them to change it and go, well, let's make it more palatable for Ash's taste buds. Well, then you're changing. It's a different character, you know.
Like
Not every
the
comic character needs to be for me.
the movie version. How old is Billy supposed to be? He's like 17, turning into an adult, and it's like at that point, like, why does he need to be himself? Why does he have to
All
be a
right, especially with the
Zach? Yeah,
sequel, that wasn't kind of my problem. The first one, I think they were playing him off as like 14.
yeah.
Um,
But,
but yeah, so this book does open up kooky. I think Dan Mora. Okay, my thoughts on Dan Mora here. Number one, I like Dan Mora very much. I think he's one of the better artists in comics right now, especially mainstream superhero books.
mhm.
I think he was really good. Like just looking at this panel sequence right here, I think is
Yep.
really good for Shazam. At the same time, I'm like, he should be doing a higher profile book because he's one of the top artists. So I feel weird about it, but no complaints. If I'm a huge Shazam fan, I'm counting my lucky stars that they put an artist of this caliber on it, who's not only just a great artist, but has the ability. Like, look at the facial expressions, how they draw. It's reminiscent to me of the old era. I don't know what it's called, the era where they drew Shazam with the black dot eyes.
Silver Age.
Was it silver? I don't know,
I
but
don't know.
they show. Do they do it on the cover? Maybe no. They show
Oh,
it somewhere in the book.
you
You're gonna see Shazam with the dot eyes.
you did see in the cover his eyes are squinted, so you don't see his eyes.
Yeah,
He's
the
smiling.
squinted, and he does that here too. Like he draws
I
them.
love this though. They're just like they did tying in with the second sequel movie. They're tying what Shazam stands for. Because I guarantee a lot of people, normies, even I included, I had no idea what Shazam stood for. I just knew it was a word he yelled. And they're like, oh, let's make it so it's an acronym. So it actually is for something. I was like,
You
oh,
didn't know that?
I never knew this. I wasn't a
Oh,
fan of
okay,
Shazam.
okay.
Yeah, so
All right. Well, I
it was
even I knew it, so I'm surprised. Um,
yeah.
yeah, no, that's cool. Um, I thought this was it's really kooky. He's like got this dinosaur, and I'm like, why is he riding a dino? Did he go back in time? What's going on? It turns out that this is actually an alien.
Yeah.
These are just like aliens that look like dinosaurs. And so when I'm
Yeah.
reading the book, it's like, why are they talking? Like, what's going on?
And
And
then
then
it
it
goes to
turns,
T.
and so part of me, as I was reading this, I was like, uh, okay, this is interesting. Like, and every turn of the
How
page is like a surprise. Like, I was like, oh, okay, you're keeping me guessing.
I
But then I'm
no,
also like, why are dinosaurs serving tea, even if they're aliens? That's a very Earth thing to do.
not even that. To me, it's madness. How does he drink it? He's got little arms.
Yeah,
He's just
all of this is just silliness, honestly. But
I,
when I sit back and I think that
yeah,
comics, once
yeah.
upon a time, and I think should go back to at least the mainstream ones, not necessarily every comic, but go back to be like for younger audiences. This is a comic. If I would give this comic to a 12-year-old. You know, like, and that to me is a big comment. Now I'm 49, so it's not necessarily my jam, but I think Mark Waid wrote a fun kids book.
And yeah, he said everything he's doing right there. What's kids do? 12 years old. I was playing video games. I was going around having fun, watching TV and doing stuff. Uh, everything we did before the internet. But still, it's like I like this, and then I love how they're still trying to they legally can't say Captain Marvel, but they explain how he got the name Captain.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
wasn't a fan of that.
I thought it was okay.
It's okay. I can see what they're trying to do.
Because
Like,
they try to
why are
say,
they calling
yeah,
him Captain? And I'm like,
well, in the sequel they tried to call him they're calling him Captain too, but or no, Captain Marvel Junior they called him, or Captain, yeah, something Junior.
I hate that they can't
Yeah,
call him
yeah,
Captain Marvel. I think this is so stupid.
yeah, yeah, it is dumb, but
I had thought
well,
I don't know what
I,
the law or the legal settlement was,
I don't know,
but
but
I thought that they could call him Captain Marvel in the comic. Like people could address him as Captain Marvel, but they couldn't call the comic Captain Marvel. That's what I
Well,
thought, because I seem to remember previously, like in comics, people would say, "Oh, Captain Marvel," but maybe that's not the case. I don't know.
who knows? But I do like this. We learned that only people who have powers are him and Mary,
Yeah, something's
and
going on with the
the
magic
wizard.
apparently.
Yeah,
This was interesting to me. Actually, this is the most interesting thing about this. I'm a big lore guy. I love mythology and everything. And so, as uh as Shazam and one of his foster brothers, they're like, "Oh, we're
uh,
late to school. We got to
Friday.
go." They're fleeing
Yeah,
in his little cave, and these eyes light up. And you're like, "Oh, someone's there." So we find out that this is presumably two of the gods that are part of the Shazam logo. That's what my first thought was. Is this one of?
okay. Use their
It's like,
powers and
is
show
that like
off.
Zeus? What are
Yeah,
the? Let's see, Zeus and
Hercules maybe.
yeah, I don't know who the other guy would be. Maybe Solomon. I don't know. Um, or they're just gods because they talk about like they're kind of like they have contempt for him, and they're like, oh, this boy uses these chambers just to celebrate himself, and they're like, he needs to bring back the gods and stuff. So I was
The
like, oh,
contempt he has
okay.
for us. Yeah,
This is a plot line that has me kind of interested because I gotta admit, like one of the problems I have with Shazam, like the whole Billy Batson becoming a thing, like okay, fine, that's whatever. But then it's like, hey, what does he do? Who does he fight? Like what? I'm not interested in his
or
stories. I don't care
yeah,
about reading about his little school life. Like I don't. But I am interested in this whole like these gods want to take over, and I'm already reading this book going, this is a more compelling storyline to me than what, and admittedly I haven't seen it yet, but what the trailer for Shazam 2 was.
I did like he said this. He says like whenever I'm in Shazam mode, I'm as Captain Marvel. It's like all I hear is this little voice nagging me. Do this. Do be good. Do this. Be perfect. He's like, and he's like when I'm myself, I can make mistakes and I can do what I want. Even he's like I embrace being myself. I'm not perfect like I am when I am. So he's basically like there's two versions of himself. It's just I says I just enjoying life being
That,
Billy. You
that's a
know.
really great point. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't catch that right away. And this is a credit to Mark Wade because he's talking about Solomon's wisdom, and he says, um, it's the
To make
wisdom
me
of
a genius.
Solomon. People forget that Solomon wasn't all that smart. He was wise, big difference. Solomon's power doesn't make me a genius. It helps me see my way out of super problems. Upside. But it also means that between crises, there's a tiny voice constantly in my ear whispering like, eat your vegetables, you'll get a good night's sleep, da 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 da, which gets old really fast, and it shows him in his Captain Marvel form, you know, kind of like his conscience is weighing at him. But then it says, so as Billy, I'm more able to be myself, make my own choices, not feel responsible all the time because as Billy, he doesn't have the wisdom of Solomon. So, and I was like, oh, that's really kind of like, I really appreciated how Mark Wade like opened my eyes to the character and something I'd never considered before. Like, and as a
Yep.
kid, that would be really freeing, like you could just not have responsibilities and all your conscience nagging at you. But then he says, that said, Billy can't fly. Billy always feels heavy and slow. And I really liked it. Like he was really making me as the reader like feel the dichotomy of the pros and cons of each side. Like each side had things about it that were better than the other. And there was no, I don't know. I thought that was really cool. He got me into the character more and the feeling of the character. It just made me, I don't know, I guess care about the character more, and that's something as a writer,
Then
kudos.
call back to the Charlton era. We got Talkie Tunney, which I have no attachment to, but I was like, oh, this is who this character is. You
I
know,
had no, I thought this was
it,
something new. I didn't know this was Charlton era, so that's how much I know
yeah,
about Captain Marvel.
yeah. So I was like, he's this cat person, but it's like, he's yeah. It explained. this is like I said, this is a very good setup for those who have never really read like Captain Marvel. I'm sorry, not Captain Marvel, but Shazam comic. Uh, and it's very kid friendly. It's very open, but it's not like super kid like oh, it's only for kids, jokey, like haha. No, it's actually got I would say your balance between teen and adult. You know, basically family friendly. Where everyone can enjoy it. It's it doesn't it banks on the sensible just being like there's some comedy here too, but like it's not trying to be just one thing or be more than one thing. It's like it has a creative flow or balance.
Hmm.
And I'm 37 years old. Like I'm a kid at heart. But like there's even things, but there's still things I will not watch. I will not watch Little Einsteins or whatever those shows are. Like and like because those are baby shows. That's how I look at them. Some of those shows are on uh, Nick Jr. But like when I can find something like this, it's come as I must want to say the perfect example would be like the Teen Titans cartoon, not the Teen Titans Go, the original Teen Titans. I actually kind of like that. It was right in the middle of it's kind of cartoony, like humor and stuff, but it's also got its serious moments. And I'm hoping that's what this book's going to be. It's going to have its serious moments, but also be lighthearted too.
Yeah.
And I feel like most books, if you're going to do that, should do that. Unless you're Batman, just be like dark all the time. That's what he is. No.
This was an
But yeah.
interesting part here. Apparently, so Wade has created that what Billy does in his free time to make some extra money, a
Yeah.
side hustle, as he writes, is he does a fan cast. So this feels a little bit ripped off of Spider-Man to me, a little bit like, oh, like so Billy runs a like basically like a YouTube channel where it's a fan cast about Captain Marvel. And of course, he's got
uh,
the inside scoop because he's really Captain Marvel. It's the same thing like Spider-Man's like, I sell pictures of Spider-Man, Peter Parker. Well, it's because he is Spider-Man, but
I
J.
I
Jonah
I did,
Jameson never puts two and two together. So weird here, like the audience never puts two and two together. Why does this kid have special access to Shazam? No one knows. But
well,
that's the conceit of this comic. It's
yeah.
why does Peter Parker have special connect like photos of Spider-Man? No one knows. It just, but it felt like a little bit of a ripoff.
To
Um,
me, it's for me though. This would be a modern take though, whether you watch Spider or not. Whatever. Uh, this is what a 12-year-old would do in today's society. Everybody's got YouTube channels. He's like, well, I can make some money off of this, but he said it's not really about making money. It's more about just basically,
well,
I
he's
forget. What
making money.
yeah,
He says it's a side hustle.
yeah, it's a side hustle. But he said like, I can't read because it's out of focus here. He said it was Freddie's idea. I wasn't sure about it at first, but he said that as long as I stuck to the facts, I might inspire listeners to be kinder to one another. But he's like, being kids they are. It's like, well, I can make money while just being inspiring people to do good. Why not?
I don't know. I
So it is.
I I, I don't.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't necessarily think this was a bad thing. I just when I read it, immediately I thought of Spider-Man. I was like,
I didn't. I don't even know what you're talking about. Talking about the movie?
no, just the character Spider-Man. That's one of the things how
Oh,
Peter Parker made money was he would
take it.
sell pictures of the paper
Yeah.
of Spider-Man. And it was like Peter Parker had special access to Spider-Man because unbeknownst to the characters in the comic, he really was Spider-Man. So here,
Hmm.
unbeknownst to the characters in the comic, Billy Batson is Captain Marvel, right? That's why he's able to run this site and it gives news and footage of
Yeah,
Captain Marvel because
like
to
in
me
the
there's
in
that similarity.
yeah, yeah, I like similarity. In the Spider-Man comics, early comics, they had a creative way explaining why he's able to do that. Because majority of people are like, well, I saw Spider-Man walking in the alley, and then and then I see Peter Parker walking out. You're gonna think too. They even had somebody try to say, "Oh, I got you now," and he realizes, and then you see Spider-Man creates a dummy, it makes it swing away, and Peter Parker's standing there. It's like, oh, so yeah, like for Peter Parker having exclusive access to there is that some people thought that basically Peter Parker was blackmailing Spider-Man, or maybe Spider-Man, because he's a menace, wanted to make a side hustle on himself. And then so he was basically, him and Parker were splitting the profits, or he was bullying Parker into taking the photos. It was it
My
was
point
there's
was
no,
is both characters have a side
yeah,
hustle
yeah, yeah.
reporting on their alternate identities.
I don't see it as a rip off. I think it's maybe a tribute, or maybe a homage to that character like that. But I mean, it's not an original
I
idea,
don't think it's an homage.
but
Anyways, not that
it
huge of a
still
deal. I
works
don't want
though.
to turn this into I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, but it just immediately is where my brain went.
The original
Um
OnlyFans.
Now, what I was talking about before about this being like more of like a kid's book, I don't think I don't want to convey that I think this book is childish. What
Oh,
I mean by
Mariachi.
that is if I read this as a 12-year-old, I would not be seeing the things that I see as a 49-year-old, right? So when I read this as a 49-year-old, I read this part here when I'm like, "Oh, look, here's all the fan comments on his channel." And immediately, of course, Manchild 95 is smiling, saves dogs, soy boy. And so as 12-year-old, I would just skip all past this. I'd be like, "Oh, hey, look, they're making funny comments, whatever." As 49-year-old Ash, I'm like, "Oh, wow, here's Mark Wade making comments about man children and talking about, oh, if you like people smile." Remember how in the actual like Marvel's Captain Marvel movie about how all the fanboys, conservative fanboys would make fun of like you need to smile more. In fact, they even put a scene like that in the movie and then had to pull it out. This to me is like really deep cuts, like Mark
As a
Wade getting his digs in. Now,
as a 37-year-old, I looked at that as basically there's always gonna be someone who's gonna hate something. There's always trolls.
there is always trolls. I get that. But this
So
was a clear like, oh, the
not
only
to,
one
to
the
you
one
it
who was
was
the
not.
one who was the troll was the one doesn't like it because Captain Marvel's not smiling. And that's the dig. Like we'd say Captain Marvel, like the Carol Danvers Captain Marvel, she doesn't smile. And what do we refer to those, or what do Mark Wade's side refer to those people? What would Mark Wade call me? He would call me a man child. Again,
Um,
all I'm trying to do
I,
is illustrate
yeah,
how I
you
see
see
these
it.
things as 49-year-old Ash. As 12-year-old kid, that would go right over me. I wouldn't see any of that. And this is probably the most extreme example in the book. The other example is like the tea. When I'm reading it, I'm like 49-year-old Ash is like, "Wait, why do space aliens serve tea? That's a very earthly thing to do." Like, my brain
Well,
goes in places that a 12-year-old wouldn't think of. They just be like, "Oh, how funny, they're serving tea." Right?
this
Like,
goes back to your Crystal Skull comment.
yeah. It's just I'm not trying to bag on the comic in any way. All I'm trying to say
No,
is
no.
how as an older
Uh,
adult, my brain just goes different directions that
so,
inhibit my enjoyment.
like I said, I look at that as an evil black cat comment because he hates dogs.
Oh well.
But Marania just has to be fair. The original Billy Manson had a radio program talking about the exploits of Captain Marvel, which predates Peter Parker's taking exclusive pictures of Spider-Man.
Well, thank you, Marania. I did not know that. And that is valuable
More you
insight.
know.
Running a
uh,
YouTube channel seems like a very logical transition to evolve. Obviously we don't have radio programs anymore like that. So, oh, and here's the picture, by the way, of the old style Captain Marvel with the dots for the eyes.
Honestly, if
Um,
I had powers and an alter ego, and I would try to make money off of it. That's just what I am. I mean,
no, I'm
heck,
not
even
faulting that as the idea. What I'm saying is
no,
there are characters that already do that. And
sure,
so my
yes.
brain immediately went there and said, look, it's the Avatar thing
The reason
all
why I
over
get
again.
Spider-Man's a
People
man
watch
child.
Avatar and they go, "Oh, it's Ferngully." right? And then
It
that inhibits their enjoyment because they feel like it's derivative.
well, I like Ferngully. That
No
was a
one
really good
likes
movie.
Ferngully.
Wow,
So
hot take for
if
me
you
then.
like Ferngully, apparently according to everyone else, you should see Avatar because they're the same movie.
Well, why did I watch with Ferngully if they're the same movie?
Whatever.
uh,
So
like I said,
I'm
to
not
this,
trying to say this is an indictment on the
yeah,
comic book. I'm saying it as me. Like
uh,
I see it,
I
I go, "Oh, that seems derivative," and it blocks my enjoyment.
I just
But
like I said, the whole thing with the T Rexes having short arms trying to drink
no, that was funny.
coffee.
I love the
It's
absurdity
just
of that.
yeah, I guess it's just so absurd. And why their tea is like bug tea and stuff, juice or like, uh, it's irrational.
And here's the thing too.
How do they pilot the ship?
Here's the thing, and that's the thing I was trying to say about like kid stuff. Like when you're a kid, you can just like things and not have to like know how everything works, right?
You can
You
do this
just
adult too.
well, you can as an adult, but I can't. Like I know how things work now, and so I can't overlook it anymore. And so some things to me just don't work. I appreciate when I read this, I go, "Oh, this is kind of funny and silly." A little bit too much for me. It wasn't over the top. I think the art really helps sell it for me. And I think the fact that Mark Wade didn't go super ludicrous with it, he didn't spend too much time with it. It was just a fun opening of the book. And then it was like, okay, moving on now. And
It's
so I
like to me,
think he didn't overstay its welcome. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
to me, seeing that is like reading Alice in Wonderland. The absurdity of the animals and all of them,
Yeah, but
the Mad
Alice in
Hatter.
Wonderland is supposed to be absurd. Like
And
you're like these are aliens. I was like, why do aliens look exactly like T-Rexes?
because T Rexes built they're the ones that created Stonehenge, okay? With the little arms. I
I was
don't
like,
know, like I said.
see, my brain goes there and it goes, if there was aliens, they wouldn't look exactly like T-Rexes. They might look somewhat similar, like coincidentally, but no.
Maybe
Anyways,
these are dinosaurs that were high evolutionary got to them, evolved them.
that's a different different universe.
Yeah, but everybody uses the same freaking concepts. When there's everybody copies Marvel, DC. At this point, I don't care as long as it's a good story for me and I enjoy it. And I gotta say that this I did enjoy it, and then especially the ending here because remember those two guys. I'm assuming they're doing something that's affecting him because at the end of this, as you say to everybody, he freaks out, and I can't
Yeah,
tell if he's really doing that. And like that's him having a mental breakdown and actually doing this on camera, or or it's all in his head. You know,
no, you obviously it's not him. Like that's I can't even believe you would think. So yeah, so he saves this woman and her baby from this wreckage. You know, this is big. I don't know, it's like a sinkhole or something collapsed. And she's like, he's like, "Gosh, I don't know what to say. I'm just glad to help." And she's like, "Help? You saved my babies. You saved all of us. How can we ever thank you?" And she gives him a big hug. And he's just like, "Well, since you asked, you can get the hell away from me, you pathetic stinking cow." And everyone's like, "What?" And he just goes ballistic. Who do you worms think you are? And then he comes to his senses and he's like, oh my God, what did I just say? What have I done? You see all the news cameras looking at him, and that's to be continued. So clearly he
yeah,
lost himself for a moment.
yeah. But knowing comic books, I said I've been watching around a rabbit hole, so I'm like, oh, maybe it's not exactly what it sees appears. Maybe he
This
did
is not
lose it,
rabbit hole.
or
This is not rabbit hole. I'm pretty sure you
so
can
look at
accept
it.
at face value. I think Mark Wade's writing a pretty straightforward plot line. We know that those
So
two other guys are influencing him. It
yeah,
seems pretty clear that they're probably involved. It is possible that they're not, that there's another nemesis, and but um, yeah. No, no. All in all, I think this was a good book. I would give this a 4 stars.
Yeah, like I said, it's above mid for me. I love the art on here too. It's only the first issue, so I mean, I'm curious to see what's going to go on. But I've been loving World's Finest. If you haven't been reading World's Finest, check it out. It's really fun. It's a really fun series. Superman, Batman teaming up. You get the classic Teen Titans, Kid, Flash, Wally West. Uh, Dick Grayson, Robin. Just respect for the like if you miss the Silver Age, but you also want a modern kind of like art, you know, with a throwback, I see me. It's not. I'm not trying to say it's like it's a modern writer putting modern version of the DC. It's basically he's tapping into the Silver Age as far as and just continuing. It's almost like a throwback. It's an ongoing throwback, something that Marvel does over there with Peter David, writes a 5-issue miniseries, or Chris Claremont, but instead of just doing 5, he's like an issue 17 now, or something like that. But yeah, obviously this is the dawn of the DC now. It's almost like a crappy rebirth. I've noticed that.
Look at all, yeah, it's like
Like,
crappy rebirth. Look at those number ones in May.
well, it's like who puts? It's like remember, it's the same with films. You release films in January and March stuff. Like you can't put your worst films now at certain times. Everything's changing as far as theaters when you release films. Same with the books. Like I don't think they're thinking it's going to happen. And then Batman the Brave and the Bold. I guess it's supposed to be an ongoing. To me, it looks like
We
I
don't
thought it
have
was a
enough.
one shot.
We don't have enough Batman books, apparently.
Well, I think their Batman Urban Legends is canceled, so they're going to replace it with another book. So it's basically
We can't sell this book. It's not selling. We got to cancel it. So then we need to replace it with another book that won't sell.
unless they're not replacing it with they might not be replacing the Batman the Brave and the Bold or the Batman what's it called? Urban Legends. I think the actually comics is pretty much the replacement for that. You're just gonna do Superman stuff with 3 stories, rotating because
Well,
Power Girl's done.
clearly they're replacing it with Batman Brave and the Bold. I mean, if you're canceling a Batman book and then you're launching a new Batman book,
Let me look that up.
that's a replacement.
Well, no, I meant it's been anthology stuff. They're gonna do a whole new thing. Um,
I'm gonna guess Brave and the Bold, since historically that's what it was, is probably likely to be anthology. But regardless, we just we have way too many Batman books. I'm just surprised they're launching another one. But look at these books. Man, I mean, look, this Shazam book was quality. It's not necessarily my cup of tea. Like this isn't something I'm going to put on my pull list, but that's not a fault of the book. It's just the things that I'm into. Um, for what it is, as a Shazam book, I couldn't ask really much for more.
no,
So if you are a person who is interested in Shazam or even a fan of Shazam, you should probably pick this up. It's a quality book. Um,
yeah, Brave and the
I,
Brave Bold is gonna be your weekly thing.
Shazam, I can understand a launch. You got the movie series. Okay, Shazam. It's not always a big character, but whatever. Green Lantern, yes, historically one of DC's biggest characters. It boggles my brain that there's not a current Green Lantern series already just going. Like it's just stupid. Spirit World, that'll be dead before the end of this year. Batman Brave and the Bold will probably continue just because it has Batman on the
Oh,
cover. Like it's just people buy Batman books because they're
well,
zombies.
yeah. So Batman Brave and the Bold, it looks like you're gonna have Tom King and Mitch Gerads unite for a 4-part retelling of the first Blade Clash between the Joker and the Batman.
Oh,
But
never
then the
mind.
second story is gonna be Dan Moore doing art and writing. Batman Black and White short stories.
So it's an
Gotham.
anthology, just like I thought. I
Yeah,
called it
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Cyborg. Does does anyone does anyone want a Cyborg series? Are you freaking
Uh,
kidding me?
I would love the
Cyborg?
Cyborg series.
No, no, you're
If
not.
if if
You're not.
I want Cyborg series, but I want them like the '80s Cyborg and like I want post crisis, like where he's less robot
Is
and
Cyborg
more
even on a
human.
team right now?
I don't know. Actually, I don't know. He might be
Yeah.
in Titan still.
Titans got Titans got
Titans,
disbanded.
he was at Titans Academy, but
So
no, but
so
Titans is disbanded though because
yeah, it was.
Titans
Titans was
is coming
disbanded.
back. It's a new series. You're gonna have Tom
I
Kingsbury
know.
in.
That's what's in right next there. So they're bringing back Titans. So they got rid of Titans, not just canceled the book, like they disbanded. They moved the characters onto different teams. In fact, some of them joined the Justice League. Um, and that was man, that
Uh,
was the best era, man. The Trinity of the Justice League, the Dark Odyssey, Dark, and the regular Justice League. That was such a great era of Justice League. Why
well,
can't you just go
the
back
other
to that?
the other thing with Titans though now is that or actually not Titans, but going back to Cyborg. Cyborg is pretty much either he's on Titans team or he's in the Justice League.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what to do with him.
Right. Because
He's
no one
he.
cares. And they're gonna give him a solo
I,
book.
I did like him in Justice League Odyssey.
Sure.
Dan Abbott's turn.
Sure. I like lots of characters that are on teams. Doesn't mean they need a solo book.
No,
Cyborg's gonna be dead. Give it won't go 12 issues.
to
I
me,
predict.
Cyborg is kind of like having a Steel book. I don't care for Steel.
I just sorry. And I don't mean to disrespect to Cyborg fans. He's sorry, he's a C-list
I,
character.
I do. All the disrespect from me.
Titans has a lot of fans. I thought it was kind of I had mixed feelings. I thought it was kind of dumb that they disbanded the Titans, but why they did it to put them on the Justice League teams, I was like, okay, this is better. So I missed that, but I understand giving Titans a book. Vigil, totally interested in because it's Rom V. It's a brand new character, so I don't question it. City Boy, have no idea what that is.
Oh, that's
Steelwork,
a so City Boy was introduced earlier this year. He's a character that basically during the Low Lazarus event, he's able to basically like he has connect with the city. He's basically another new hero they have now. But the Vigil looks pretty good. We'll see how it's a Ram V book though. We'll see how it does because it's a these are all new characters. These aren't existing characters that Ram V's taking over. And it's a DC product, and people are hesitant with DC characters now that are new characters because, well, look at the last ones we had, Miracle Molly. No one gave a shit about there. But I don't know.
um,
It's
and then Steelworks.
yeah, that's Steel and his like daughter or something like that.
Come on.
Hawk Girl is Kendra Saunders.
Oh no, but before
Uh
that, we got
yeah.
Tales of the Titans. So not just bringing back Titans, we're getting a second Titans book.
Now Tales of Titans might be a one shot.
Maybe, could be. It's hard to tell. We don't
Yeah.
even know. Um, Hawk Girl's getting her own book. No one's gonna care. No one.
Well,
Well,
that's my thing with Hawk Girl. It's like, is this like are we doing which version? It's obviously it's Kendra Saunders, but is it going to be CW Hawk Girl? Like,
it doesn't matter.
obviously, it does matter because it could be going to be a good writer. But then I looked at who's writing it. Is this basically someone who identifies as a woman and who was born a man,
They
and
can
that's usually a
barely
person
sell
me.
Hawkman books. Hawk Girl,
Yeah.
it should not have her own book. Nothing disrespect against Hawk Girl. Keep her on a Justice League, whatever. Like, fine. You don't get your own.
Uh,
Not every character needs or deserves their own book. You give books to characters that can sell them and focus on those. Like I said, they should have never canceled Green Lantern. That's one of DC's mainstays. And then they turned it into a book that people started forgetting about Green Lantern because they just poisoned the well. And then finally in August, we're getting a Penguin. Speaking of characters that don't need their own book, Penguin #1. To
so
me, I
Tales
look
of
at.
Titan. Sorry, I was
I
going to
was
say
saying, go ahead.
Tales of Titan is Shannon Hale and Dean Hale are co-writing it with Javier Rodriguez doing the art and the inside. It's a 40-page for $5. The first issue. It says DC premier superhero team, all eyes are on them. But who are Starfire, Raven, Donna Troy, and Beast Boy? Where do they come from? What do they stand for? All will be revealed in Tales of Titans, all new series of the Spotlight issues of the spirit of the beloved 1980s classic Tales of the New Teen Titans. First up is Starfire, and Basically, yeah, it's just like I said, it could be good. Um, I am
Anything
like
can
it.
be good. I mean,
Like I said,
they made a
I'm not
freaking
ruling
movie
my,
about Legos.
I'm
Like,
not ruling, I'm not. Like I said, Tom King, Titans. Yeah, I'm not gonna this. Now, this people I've never heard of, Dean and Shannon Hale. It has a chance to be good, but uh, like I said, it looks like these people worked on at least for Shannon Hale, she worked on Wonder Woman 750. And then she's also wrote the young thing. It's called Diana and Nubia, Princesses of the Amazon last year, and Rapunzel's Revenge. They did for some other company, but I don't know, man. Like I said, I don't try to like poo-poo it because like it's another Titans book. I mean, like, but it is kind of dumb. They have okay, it's like you're gonna have this book here at Teen Titans or Titans, and then have Tales of the Titans. It's like you're competing with each other. Just quit competing with each other in the same company. Put out one and see how that does. Yep. It's just fail. If it's like they're just trying to like they're putting out lures. Are well, if they don't like this book, maybe they'll go for this book. It's just like no, support the one that you have, and like like, people will flock to it. If you don't even support your books you're selling, like Hawkman, for whatever reason, towards the end, the last 5 issues, no one was buying it. And that could be because it wasn't advertising, or because maybe just people, you know, lost interest in the story. It happens. But I do
dude,
know this,
dude, the
the,
last 5 issues of Hawkman were freaking astonishing. They were it's
but,
fantastic.
but but sales were down for them.
Well, it's
That's why
because
they get canceled.
Hawkman doesn't sell. That's what I'm
Yeah,
trying to tell you. You're making the argument about like, well, it could be good. Hawkman was like the best thing DC's done in I don't even know how
yeah,
long, and it didn't sell. It doesn't matter how good it is if it won't sell.
yeah.
And that's why I'm saying Cyborg. You could write the greatest Cyborg story ever told. It's not going to sell because people don't give a crap about Cyborg. They less people care about Cyborg than Hawkman. Like I
Well, my thing is that you could write the best cyborg story and write it and you could build a big, huge fan base off of that. Maybe who knows? It could rise up to be a good, but best,
there
good
you
selling
can't
book.
because there's no one buying comics anymore. We don't live in an era where you can sell hundreds of thousands of copies of an
I'm just
issue.
saying I'm just saying to roll your eyes at a book because because no one's buying comics anymore. That's then you should be rolling your eyes at every single book that's out right now. Because
No,
why?
no,
What's the
what I'm
point?
trying to say is you got to make your mainstays thrive. Because if your mainstays can't thrive, they can't rise the
Yeah,
tide for the other boats. Right?
when
Like
it
you
says
need Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and Flash and Justice League. You need those books to sell really good because that's the core of your fan base buying, and then they'll branch out to other books. Like you might have a person who reads Justice League and goes, I like Hawkgirl, one of my favorite characters on the team. I'm going to buy that book. You can do that then. But right now, when you're in like your dire straits and your company's floundering and no books are selling, and everything, like now's not the time to release a Cyborg book and a Hawk Girl book. And who the hell, what's Spirit World? Look at this cover of Spirit World. Tell me, who do you know is going to buy this book?
your Twitter followers, everybody
This
loves
book
Alyssa
is
Wong.
dead on arrival. No one gives a shit. This is DC going,
Look,
look, if we make anime style stuff and we pander to Asians in a totally racist thing that Marvel did 5 years ago, because DC copies Marvel almost 5 years behind to the letter. And DC did this 5 years ago with their little Asian stunt. It was totally racist. This is what they're doing
well,
here. We're casting an Asian writer to write for the Asians, and we're going to make it look manga like because that's what Asians read, and we're going to launch it during AAPI, which is the Asian Appreciation Month. Like, this is the most racist garbage trash from a trash writer who's writing comics because her career at Blizzard failed. She would not be writing comics. She would be at Blizzard, which is a much bigger, more successful company. She could make a lot more money if she was good, but she's not good. That's why she's writing comic books. But then she's marketed like, oh, Blizzard writer Alyssa Wong. This chick got a job
Yeah, yeah,
by cussing.
but
She talked shit about her boss over at Marvel, and then they hired her. I was like, what the?
but I'm not defending this book though. I'm just saying
I know you're not.
Cyborg.
I know you're not. I'm
Yeah,
not, and I'm not attacking you.
I feel very threatened right now. I need a safe space, Maranya. I need a Diet Coke. Sat.
Just look, Green Lantern. This is a book that makes sense. You need to get Green
Yes.
Lantern back on the horse. You need to make Green Lantern popular again. This is one of your mainstays, right?
Here's my speculation. They're doing bring back Green Lantern because I think he's gonna be the next one of the next movies by James Gunn.
Maybe.
Same with Green
Who
Arrow.
knows what the hell James Gunn's doing? He might be doing a freaking cyborg movie for all I know. That guy's all over the place. I don't want to
Damn
spend too
right.
much
I know,
time
but
on this. We kind of beat this dead horse already. Um, to
I
me,
don't beat dead
I'm just
horses.
frustrated because I want to see DC be great again, and I just don't understand what they're doing with these releases. To me, I'm just like, these are all of these titles, with the exception of just a few, seem like dead on arrival. You know, Shazam kind of makes sense, and at least you're putting some big talent on it. Green Lantern, of course. Spirit World, no. Batman, big mainstay title, but you've got a shitload of Batman books already. We don't need Batman overload. Cyborg, no. Titans, yes. Put Cyborg on Titans. Okay, you can have that. Vigil makes sense. Rom V making new characters. Okay. City Boy, no one knows what that is. No one cares. I don't know how many times Steel needs to fail before you realize that no one wants to read a Steel book, much less Steel and his daughter, because the last thing we want is wannabe Steel. And then Hawk Girl. It, anyways.
If you're gonna do Haku, do Shira from the actual animated universe. Much better representation
Yeah.
of the character. Um, Steelworks, I would never do Steel. I mean, if you're gonna have Steel had his moment. He had his moment to shine when Superman was not dead. They brought him in with Eradicator and all that stuff. City Boy, just say what it is. It's their attempt at a manga. Um, like Vigil and City Boy should actually share. They should share a comic book. City Boy should be the backup story in Vigil. That's what I do.
No, not the Vigil. I want the Vigil to be good. I don't want to be tarnished by some shitty. Put 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 City Boy
Just
as a
trying to,
backup in Spirit World.
yeah. Just
No.
trying to say,
Put all your
yeah.
efforts into Vigil. Like that's the thing I'm most interested in here. And if you're gonna launch something new, then swing, for the fences. Don't launch something new and then tarnish it with garbage.
I don't know. Like I said, the Vigil put a bad taste in my mouth when they brought him in to subsidize Batman. Or no, or
Mar-
was it? No, it's Ram V's Batman. Is Detective Comics. Them basically giving Bruce, a Batman Oracle an ultimatum. Either you do this, we'll do it for you. I'm thinking like Batman would just beat the shit out of you. Nothing. It's
Depending on
such a dude. It's
who's
such, it's,
depending on
but
who's writing it.
well,
Um,
it was Ram V's story. It was Ram V's creation. He
right.
had him coming in and basically giving him an ultimatum like, either you guys clean up your mess, do this here, otherwise we'll hand it for you. And I'm thinking like Batman's like, I don't know, tired of you motherfuckers coming to my town, tell me how to run my city. Get the fuck out. Literally, I want this Batman to just beat the shit out of these people. I want Batman to be the best again. I'm tired of like I do like him when he's the underdog, if it's his early years, but now that he's older, like I want him to like someone comes in, thinks they're gonna be like, oh, they're gonna one up him. Sure, you get a lucky punch, but then he studies you and then beats the shit out of you, and
He's
they're
not
like, oh, what the
but he
hell?
shouldn't be older. This is New 52 Batman. So the problem is
Yeah,
DC
I'm
editors
just
aren't
saying.
even following their own continuity.
I'm just saying when I say younger, I mean like Batman Year One. Yes, when he's kind of like still a noob, still he's only been in it for a year. I look at Batman being right now Year 3 currently.
That's still
It's his
pretty young.
third
He's in
year.
his 20s.
Yeah,
Um
Year 3 or 4, but
so let me address some things that Marani has been saying here. She says with the right writer, any character in a team book can shine. See
true.
Abnett's Aquaman, Venditti's Hawkman, both members of Justice League, great solo series by those writers. Now, first of all, agreed. I, Under the right writer, anything can shine. They made a Lego movie, and they didn't just make a Lego movie; they made it really good about Legos. So that to me is the big proof. You you can take a good writer can make anything shine. That's not the argument here that they can't make a good book. You're got a brand, and your brand is these characters, right? And you think of it like soft drinks. If you're Coca-Cola and you're not selling Coke anymore, Coke Classic, right? Or Diet Coke. Those are failing. You don't go, I wonder what, maybe we should launch a new like passion fruit Fanta. Like that's not what you do. You focus on Sprite and Coke, and I'm trying to think what are the big products from Coke. Um, I'm drawing a blank, but you know what I'm saying. Like you don't go, oh, our major sellers are failing, so let's go jump onto this like let's start hyping up our obscure things that don't. But to your point about characters like in team books, it also bears noting that Aquaman and Hawkman are both solo characters that happen to be on the Justice League. They didn't spin off of the Justice League, right? The first appearance of Hawkman was, I think, was in Flash, but he got his own book right away. Same thing with Aquaman, he got his own book, just like the Avengers, and they like came to the Justice League. Characters that are just team only characters, which might be more applicable like books like X-Men. X-Men's a really good example, right? Total team book. For the longest time, Wolverine was the only character of X-Men that could like warrant his own solo series because he was that popular. But you weren't going to just be like, here's a Cyclops solo book. They try to do in fact, Marvel's on the way to do it right now, do a Storm book. That's going to be a failure. They're team characters, right? And that's just the way it is. As of right now, Hawkgirl is purely a team character. She doesn't warrant her own book. It's not to say it's impossible, and I'm not to say you should never do it, but get all of your ducks in a row first. Make your big products sound and selling well first. Then branch out. Don't be like, oh, the ship is sinking, everything's on fire. Let's launch a Hawkgirl book. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. Like, if you had a good writer on it, if you had, like, I would love to see Hawkgirl actually doing good, because that's the reason why I like it. Red Sonja and stuff, because it's a solo series. Hawkgirl. The only problem is with Hawkgirl though is that she's intertwined with Hawkman, and if you don't have Hawkman ever what's in there, it becomes kind of weird. Like what they did with the Justice League cartoon, they had Deshira, and then he had her like hooking up with John Stewart. It was really weird because I guess that, and then you find out like, oh, her actual husband, it's not Carter Hall, it's some other guy. Arrives from like the Thanagarians from like the invasion story. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, you're telling? I hated that. I never understood why they had to have. Oh, we're gonna in this reality, we're gonna have her with this. It's like, no, that's not who she is. Change color, different. Or if you don't call her Hawk Girl, do with a different character. But I mean, like, I guess that was their lame attempt because remember they couldn't get Hawkman rights to it at the time. I don't know. It was the late '90s, early 2000s. But I always thought that was kind of weird. And that's I said, doing a Hawkgirl story without having Hawkman in it, like maybe they will have Hawkman in it down the line. But I mean, I wouldn't mind her going around kicking ass, but I mean, like knowing them though, it's gonna be slice of life,
All
or
right.
it's gonna be her. Yeah, it's not
I
gonna
get it,
be.
but we got to stop
Yeah,
looking at this as like a single fan, like I want to see it, so therefore it should exist. That's not how
yeah.
DC can't sell comics to one person. They need to sell. So go back to the Coke analogy, right? So if Coke is failing, Coca-Cola, classic, like their biggest thing, if that's failing, that's potentially billions of dollars. If passion fruit Fanta is failing, that's a much lower thing. You focus on your big product because no matter how good passion fruit Fanta is, it's only going to sell a little bit because it's a niche. product versus your big thing. Hawkgirl is a niche character. So you can put the greatest writer and the best artist on it, it's still only going to sell. It has a ceiling that's much smaller than, say, like Batman. So it makes more sense to put your efforts on Batman, because if Batman sells well, you can potentially sell into the 100,000 plus copies. If you do a really good Hawkgirl, maybe you'll get 30,000 copies. Which is better, 100 plus thousand copies or 30,000 copies? So that's what my point is. Hawkgirl is not a proven enough product to put that level of investment in right now. Once you get your big products maxing out at the potential sales, like in the current market, it's not reasonable to expect Batman could ever get more than 120,000 units sold, right? So if you could reach that level, you're like, okay, man, we're firing on all cylinders. We're selling like hotcakes. That's about as good as the current market's going to allow us. Then you stop putting your efforts. Like, you don't want to keep throwing money and investment at it, because your returns are going to be diminished. At that point, you go into smaller books, potentially like a Hawker or whatever. But now, my argument is, now is not that time. Now you don't have an Aquaman series. Now you don't have a Green Lantern series. It's about to launch, but you have some of the 7 don't even have their own books, and you're gonna launch a Hawk Girl and a Cyborg. It just
I don't
boggles my
know.
brain.
I was going through we're quickly browsing through the Spirit City thing, that free comic book thing. Basically, it's this is a new girl, new character. She's an exorcist, goes around exorcising demons and stuff, and Constantine shows up in the book, whatever. But Cassandra Cain's there too. Cassandra Cain knows how to defeat ghosts stuff, and then she ends up being trapped on the other side in the spirit world. So now they have to try and get her out. Like, that's gonna be the whole synopsis. There you go. So
There you go.
whatever. Yeah, sounds like a manga, doesn't it?
It just
Yeah.
sounds like fanfic trash, and that's what Alyssa Wong, like, whatever. She's not working at Marvel anymore, I guess. Like, now she's over at DC, because that's where all the failures of Marvel
I
seem to go to, is at
I
DC.
I, I vote next week we talk about girl talking over or girl taking over a Lois Lane story. We should do that.
Oh, shoot me now. Um, Also,
You'll love
I
art.
didn't get to finish. I want addressing Marania's thing. She says the main reason why Hawkman and Aquaman are pre Kelly Sue weren't selling is because DC focused all their publicity on Bendis going to DC and not their quality books. I respectfully disagree on that. I think comic books don't need publicity. Not formal publicity. I think word of mouth sells books. And my argument for that is X-Men. Back in the 80s, no one no one implicitly knew what X-Men was. Marvel didn't promote it. There weren't cartoons for X-Men. There weren't toys for X-Men, right? People knew who Spider-Man was. People even knew who the Hulk was. They had TV shows, cartoons. Um, People who even knew some of the lesser characters like Iron Man, Fantastic Four. These were just more. X-Men was the thing you knew only if you were into comics. Once you got into comics, of course, everyone knew what X-Men was, because it was by far and away the biggest selling comic. Like, it dwarfed the number 2, because you knew it was good. Because everyone that was into comics with you when you went to the comic book store, or if you had friends that were into comics, people were like, "Oh, X-Men, X-Men." And you at least tried it, right? Even if it wasn't yours, you tried it, like, because it didn't need to market. Quality sold. It's a matter of time. Aquaman and Hawkman are C-list characters, right? There's a reason why in that show Entourage, they made that joke about the main character making an Aquaman movie, and then they were getting James Cameron to direct it. That was like another big joke, and then James Cameron, it's made into like $1 billion movie, because that's what James Cameron does. But the point was, the joke was, no one expected a movie of Aquaman. When you take all the characters to make Aquaman, is just a joke. He's the guy who talks to fishes. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Aquaman fans or anything. I'm just saying that's the public opinion of the character. And he's got a lot of roadblocks in front of him. He's hard to sell books. And so even if you put a great writing team, Abnett, his Aquaman was great. Hawkman under Venditti was even better. These characters are harder sells. You put those guys onto Batman, they're going to sell way more. Not because all of a sudden the writing is better. It's just because Batman is a bigger character and it's a bigger avenue to sell books. And that's not to say you shouldn't have Aquaman books. I'm saying you should. I think Aquaman is bigger than Cyborg. I think he's bigger than Hawkgirl. So priorities. That's why I guess why I'm arguing is you have like a pecking order. Start at the top, work your way down. And then finally, Rania says Ash is talking about Batman Overload. I seem to recall mentioning I have a problem with Batman Overload and getting flack for saying so. I just want to clarify, if I gave you flack about it, it's not that there's a difference between a single fan having Batman Overload and a business recognizing that there is Batman Overload. As a fan, if you have Batman Overload, you don't have to buy Batman books. Like, you're buying the comics you want to buy. If you don't like Batman books for whatever reason, no one's forcing you to buy them. And so if I give flack, it's more of like, there's no point to, like, say you have Overload, because you don't have to buy the books. You can go buy the books you don't have Overload on. And I guess with DC, though, they have to sell Batman books. That's part of their product. They need fans to be excited about buying Batman. So Batman Overload is a thing that they should be concerned with. Fans shouldn't be concerned with because they control what they buy. So if you like a book, go buy it. If you don't like a book, don't go buy it. Like, Overload should never really be a thing for the fan too much. And I that's what my take is. And
I'll just say this: I never get Batman Overload because I only choose the books I want to read. I'm not trying to read all of them
Mhm.
or annoy them because there's always so many other books out there. Sure, DC puts out a lot of them, but lately DC's been putting out some good books, even if they're few and far between. They're good, and it also gives me an excuse to check out more indies. So that's
Yeah.
the reason why I don't get burned out by like, oh, there's too much Batman. If
Yeah.
you think about it, there's like everything. Their main titles are always Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The
Like,
Flash. It's like, oh
here's a related example. I got Star Wars Overload. Star Wars is at least at one time, was my favorite thing ever.
yeah,
But I purposely don't buy any Star Wars comics. I don't read any Star Wars comics. I don't buy any of the novels. I don't buy because I don't want that overload. Like, I want it to be special. Like, I like it when it's the coolest thing. And I have overload, so I avoid a lot of it. And for me, that's my choice. Like, I can do that. As Disney, who now owns Star Wars, that's a big deal for them potentially, because if they stop selling Star Wars, and they haven't stopped, but they have lost a lot of sales potential in recent years by what they've been doing to the brand. That's a problem. Like, they owe it to their brand to keep that brand strong so that fans are continuing to, like, you know, just gobble it up. Like, if you have fans just regurgitating your product, that's not a good sign. I mean, look what's happening with with Bud Light. That's a different story, but brand name strength is a huge deal. Um, let's get into um, Turtles Usagi. Now, you're a big fan of this book. You said it was last issue was kind of mid for you.
I wouldn't say a big fan. This issue had its ups and downs too. Same problems with the first issue. Um, the two turtle stories that I read this week or last week, this was the weaker compared to the Power Rangers one. Mainly because I'm just not a fan of the Usagi Yojimbo, and I just I like the turtles in here, like, but we're not like they're, but still, it's like I just don't care for Usagi or Usagi, whatever.
Usagi.
Yeah, It just felt so bland to me. I was just like, I'd
Yeah.
rather, but maybe it'd be better if it was actually adapted into like an animated, crossover. But
Why would it be better?
maybe they have someone else write
Someone else besides the man? No.
it. But
I understand what you're saying though, because I agree
yeah,
with you a lot, and I'm a major Usagi stan, pun intended. Um, because I did feel that that first issue, we talked about it on a previous episode, was a little bland, and it did really feel like it was written to cater to people who were already fans, not bring in um, like new fans.
mhm.
And so you're coming in kind of cold, not really knowing much about Usagi at all, and it yeah, I can totally understand what you're saying. Like I think everything you're saying is legit. Um, in this particular issue, I think one of the problems I was noticing is just too many characters.
Yeah.
That's no one's getting a chance to really shine. Um, like there's Usagi's barely in the comic.
Why is he have a cousin in there? It's so confusing.
Yeah, there's too much of an ensemble. Um, Stan's kind of added these new characters, uh, and it's kind of become like a team book in a sense where there's all these characters, which when it's just Usagi by himself, like
Like,
not a Turtles crossover, it still works. And especially if you're already an Usagi fan and you've had all these stories, like you can have these new characters kind of come in and they're taking up more space, but you've had years of reading Usagi, so you're digesting it better. But as a new person like you're coming in and you're just overwhelmed, and none of these characters are getting any real time for character
like
development.
the two characters that I do like is Usagi himself, and then the girl in the purple. Maybe because they have an unspoken chemistry, they kind of like each other, but don't act upon it. And then she's
Hmm.
betrothed to somebody else. So I mean, like, okay, they're not going to explore that. They kind of tease it, and then and then that's done in the first issue. And then I'm like, I don't give a shit about this Panda King. It's, General, we need no, we need we can't spare anybody. I'm thinking like, bro, you're gonna need to spare some people, even if it's just Usagi or someone else.
Yeah. Well,
But
and this is a testament to Stan writing, historical samurai
mhm,
tales. This is a big deal. Like a samurai lives to serve his master. And so
yep.
Usagi now, this panda guy is his master. So he is duty bound to do everything he says. Like he lives to serve him. And that's just part of the samurai code. And so now he's kind of coming at a crossroads because the turtles are like, "We need your help." And he's like, "Yeah, I'll help you." And then the panda guy's like, "I don't give a shit about you guys. Like, I got my own things. I'm fighting a war. Like, I Usagi's my general. I need him. He's not." And so now he's torn, and he has to tell the turtles like, "I I can't. My lord is saying, you know." Um, but we know it's all going to come to pass because we get this back story here. We get the villain, and he's created this army of samuroids, which I think is great samuroids.
With the
Um,
mole men, who apparently I've learned going through research are kind of forgotten about. Apparently, in the Usagi, they randomly appear.
yeah. Well, and they're like the ninjas, so that yeah, they're not supposed to exist. But yeah, so you just know, like he talks about here, I want them destroyed. He's going to attack the army, and so even though the samurai lord doesn't want Usagi to help him, they're they're all going to end up needing each other because the the samuroids are going to come
Well,
in.
I mean, we also learn in this issue that the main villain's been there for quite a long time now. Before, even though he left like a few seconds before the turtles did in the portal.
Yeah, the
So
turtles arrived 20 years after.
yeah, and the fact that he's been secretly the guy's been secretly building himself like his army up, and like I'm thinking like nobody's noticed this at all. people have gone missing. People who but then again, maybe it's because it's samurai, area of feudal Japan. People constantly go missing. But the one thing that's really helped me for this book is when I read the turtle stuff, I'm reading them in their English voice actors from the cartoon in the 80s. So that's helping out more. But I mean, like, the art is just for me, it's very, very cartoony when you have like I can accept the turtles because they're mutated over. But it's like in the turtles world, they're the only animal creatures that talk, except
Mhm.
for Splinter.
Yeah, they're
This it's
mutants.
like there's no humans.
Right.
It's like it's just so weird to me. It's like I don't know if this is the best fit, for like turtles. But I mean, but they do also mentions like, don't you recognize me? It's like, oh yeah, you guys are, I haven't seen you in such a while. So they do um Stan acknowledges that they've met before in a
Yes.
previous comic book.
Yep. And in
But
fact, they even have where is it? Here where they talk about like last time there's a giant catfish, blah blah. There's asterisk and it says C TMNT Usagi Ojimbo Namazu. So it's even
my
referencing the particular story.
so my thing is that if they continue having that other freaking rabbit in there at the same time, I'm gonna get confused. Like I don't
Usagi's
want another.
so in order to
Yeah.
help your confusion, Usagi is always in blue.
Okay.
Um, and that was the point too. Like you were supposed to be confused because Jotaro, who's the other one, he wears green. Um,
Yeah.
the
So
turtles think he's Usagi. They're like, "Oh, what's going on?" And he's like, "What? How do they know?" So that was like
are they
yeah.
his son? Because they question it too. Is like he's almost looking for your son, and he kind of like, is that a ongoing thing in Usagi Yojimbo,
I
or
am
this guy?
I am not super well versed on the Jotaro stuff. So I need to go back and read and and get on that. Like I'm more of the classic Usagi, so I don't have the answer for you
Mm,
on that. But yeah, I get where you're coming from, and for me, this is a step down from the typical Usagi experience. However, I'm an Usagi fan, so even like mid Usagi is still good to me. But I can
well, that's
totally
the thing.
understand. I can totally understand someone like you who doesn't have like an emotional attachment to you. You're just like, this is whatever. Like I don't care one way or the other. It's
Yeah,
not winning you over, and I get it. Like I'm not gonna try to say like you're or anything. I feel that's kind
like
of a bummer because this is not a
uh,
book that I would recommend to people who aren't already fans. This is not the like gateway to get you. Because
well, here I'll say this: what I really like the first issue is when the turtles are separate by themselves. You got more of a jokey rap, turtles. And if they continue the humor with the turtles, the '80s cartoon thing, I'll probably like it more. But if they stay serious stuff, maybe you'll like it more because it'd be like the Eastman Turtles. But I don't know. It's like I understand Yusaki Ojimbo has his own sense of seriousness or personalities, the types they use for the characters' books. But I don't also want him to like and make the turtles into basically like, oh, this is a turtle is like not the ones This is like the serious version. It's like if that's the case, then they should all be wearing the red bandanas. Like, don't mute them so they their personalities so they line up with your characters. That's what I mean. I don't want you like the
well, I
water them
mean, you
down.
have that scene
Yeah,
where they're having the
yeah,
feast, you know,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
Donatello's like, "Hey, check it out, it's Japanese pizza." Um,
yeah. Which is really weird because that would be like a Michelangelo thing too. That's the other thing.
yeah, typically. Um,
Yeah,
but the pizza thing is definitely from the cartoon,
yeah.
right? That's the more
He's trying to, but he said, like I said, like I hope that we get more scenes of them being kind of silly.
now.
Like Raphael's the serious, angry one.
I will say, like Usagi Ojimbo is never silly. I wouldn't it's serious in a sense that it's straightforward. It's not trying to be jokey, but Stan typically has a style of writing that's very lighthearted. So even in the midst of like whatever, like the villain's trying to take over with samuroids or whatever, there's like a lightheartedness, like a comic bookiness. Like even the villains are just goofy. Like this guy's like what's his name? Dr. Werewin, and
Mhm.
he's just a very comic booky villain, and he's hired these mole men ninjas. He's built a robot army and he's just like, it's my army of samuroids. So there's like a lightheartedness. It won't be jokey. The turtles that you're used to tend to be more like the silly cowabunga dudes. Like
Like,
you're
so
probably not going to see that level, but you're not going to see the Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird where it was like the original Teenage Mutant Turtles that I like that grew up, they were an homage to Frank Miller. Like the whole story was Daredevil. Like if you ever read issue number 1, it's the truck comes by, the ooze stuff comes out of the back of the truck. You got the guy darts across the road to save. That's Matt Murdock's origin story. And what happens is that the writers deviate and they follow the ooze into the sewers instead of following the character that darts and saves the person and gets splashed in the eyes. That Matt Murdock story, they divert. Now they never say that that character's Matt Murdock because of course they don't have the rights to do that, but it's the same thing. And when you see the way they write, it's very much an homage
yeah,
to the Frank Miller Daredevil
yeah.
stuff. And so that their writing is trying to capture that gritty, like, but Sakai does not write like that. He's very much this lighthearted, but not
So
not not jokey, but not too
no,
serious.
as Tahilium said in the chat, this really feels like the Ninja Turtles 3 movie.
I've never seen that, but
Where they get transported back in time by this magical
yeah,
weapon or whatever. Yeah, and they end up in the feudal Japan.
Turtles
But
in
it's
Time, I
basically
think is what it's called.
whatever the third one was. Yeah,
Yeah.
but anyway, but yeah, just
Now
instead of having humans,
that
they're all
was jokey though.
yeah.
That
Wasn't as jokey, but there
go
were jokey
ninja,
moments.
go ninja, go.
That was the second movie.
Was that the second one? I thought that was the third one. The
That
ninja
was the second
rap.
one, Vanilla Ice
Oh,
with the
whatever.
ooze. Yes.
Secret of the Ooze.
Anyway, so this sort of thing, Raphael making light of the joke, the whole samurai honor thing, and she's like, she's getting angry, and he wouldn't be like, "Oh, you're right, I'm sorry." He'd be like, "What the hell's up her ass?" He'd be more like that, He's kind of like, kind of still of a jerk, But eventually, he would come around. Like, I just felt that was kind of so out of character for him to come, like, instantly, like, "Oh, I apologize."
Well,
No, he's more
remember
like,
he was trained by a Japanese sensei,
no,
Splinter.
he was, but I'm just saying, in the other versions of him, he wouldn't immediately do that. He holds a grudge for the most part, but eventually would. But I'm just saying, they felt so quick for him to turn on the dime and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry." You know, you know. I don't know. It's just it's little nitpicks here and there, but other than that, like I said, it's a good book. But I mean, like, it's not a great book in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not a
Like,
great book. Um, like I said, I think this would get +1 star for people who are already fans of Usagi, um, and to a lesser extent the Turtles. Um,
eat pizza while you read it.
it's but this is not the book to be your first foray into either of these characters, I don't think. Um,
No, no.
and like I said too, really too many characters. Stan here is really struggling to juggle all these characters, and so there's really no time with any of them individually. If it was just Usagi and the four turtles and that's it, that
Mhm.
would already be 5 characters, but there would be more time. Maybe that'll get fleshed out as the thing goes on. I'm still very much enjoying it. My perspective is like I'm already an Usagi fan, I'm a Turtles fan, so I am having fun with this. It's admittedly it's not great,
Yeah.
but
I
it's
would
not
say
bad either. It's not bad at all. I'm enjoying it. And
I would say if you're a new reader, I would check out the Saturday morning cartoon. Not the cartoon. You could watch cartoon if you want to, but I'm saying there's a IDW release Saturday morning cartoon. It was Ninja Turtles, and like there, right there, right there. That was a great introduction to characters if you're new.
If you like the Saturday morning cartoon version of the
Yeah.
Turtles.
Well, even if you've never, Eric Burnham is a good writer. He did the Ghostbusters stories. So, but overall, I'm gonna stick with that book. But for me though, it's a 3.5. It's just above it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it gets better for you. Better for me too.
I think
Um,
when they actually start fighting, it will actually start getting better. Right now, it's just like let's sit around. Like this is who's Mariko Tamaki is entered the chat. Pretty much. Let's have food. Sit down, eat.
yeah. You may have probably less appreciation for Usagi Ojimbo because one of the strengths of the comic is that Stan Sakai takes great he uses the comic to, I don't want to say teach. I don't know if that's the right word because it's not a lecture, but he really likes exploring Japanese culture, especially the historical like feudal Japanese culture. He's an American born Japanese, and so when he started writing the comic book, he started like researching his own culture, like going back and learning about where he came from and his ancestors and the history of Japanese and stuff. And so as he was learning that, he was putting that in his comics. So his comics always, every issue would always feature like something new he learned about Japanese history or culture and things like that. And in the normal comics themselves, he would usually have like a one-page thing at the very end where he would like highlight like this is the thing, like, you may have noticed I featured like pottery in this issue, and he would like do like just like a little essay, one page of like that, and you could read it or not read it depending on your interest level. But the point was the comics were very much a cultural exploration. Now me as a fan, I'm very interested in Japanese society and culture and samurai stuff, so I gravitated towards that very
Yeah.
much. I didn't
So
necessarily need like fighting and stuff all the time because there's plenty of books that did do that, but not exploring like what does it mean to be a samurai in ancient
sure.
Japan.
So
Now you may
where
not have that. Hold on, you may not have that level of interest, so I'm recognizing that that may not hold a candle. The other thing that challenge you're facing is Usagi Ojimbo is an anthropomorphic book, which is to say that it doesn't use humans. It's all the characters are represented by humanized animals, and it's just a thing that came around in the 80s. It was like a trend. I don't know if that came through manga because I know the Japanese did that for a while, where they would just do characters that were animal, anthropomorphic characters. But Usagi does that, and I know it throws people off. It threw me off when I first got in. I was like, I don't want to read a cartoon, these cartoon characters.
I also like faster paced books. It doesn't have to be one shot. But like Ethereal's giving us
The
a
typical
history on
Usagi books
Jotaro.
are faster paced. He does not write like for the
Yeah,
trade. Usually the stories are
yeah,
like one or two issues. A lot happens. I think like here the problem is he's juggling so many characters that
yeah.
he's finding it difficult to get to the point because he's trying to give every character a little bit of the spotlight and it's just too much.
Uh, we're getting told by the dragon that Jotaro is Usagi's son, but since Usagi left, Kenichi, I guess the girl, or married Mariko, so Jotaro would I guess do you mean wouldn't be a bastard? Because you say because he wrote down would be a bastard. Jotaro knows Usagi's his dad, but last I have seen, didn't tell Usagi that he knows. So that could be the awkwardness. That's why he says like, that's why he knows. But uh, but heartbreaking if that's the case. Like she married somebody else because he left. He wasn't around. You know what that
Yeah.
reminds me? I know that sounds like Zeb Wells, freaking Spider-Man. All
Please don't put Stan Sakai in the same level as Zeb Wells. Ugh.
it's all.
Well, another thing about Japanese culture and storytelling is that they're really big on tragedy. And so
No.
I think that's a bit of Stan Sakai writing tragedy into his stories. Um, is the Usagi, um, is
Your
that?
master's killed, so he must avenge his master.
Yep, that's part of it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there
Oh,
you go. I don't know if you guys are reading these books. I think both of them are worth it with the various caveats that I've expressed. Um, I think both of them have their share of flaws, but overall, I think are successes in what they're trying to do. Um,
hopefully in the future, and when Usagi Yojimbo, that Kenchi's husband gets killed, and then she's able to be with Usagi, happy ending. But it
that wouldn't be a tragedy then, would it?
would be a tragedy for the other guy.
That's how tragedies work. Um, so yeah.
But
Um, what else? What else we got to talk about? Is that it?
that was the two things that came out. That well, you read that one, and then the other one I've been getting, the Shazam. I haven't read this.
Is anyone reading this book? I saw this a
It's a
while
volume
ago,
two.
the volume one,
Uh,
and I saw it at my alternate comic book store that I go to, and I was like, "What is this?" And I'm an animal lover. We've talked about this before. Everyone knows I love dogs, but it's not just dogs. I love animals. And so I'm very drawn to animals, and the art in the cover on the there was other covers too. They're just striking, and I was like curious. And covers can always be misleading. Sometimes they'll get some artist to draw a cover, and you're like, "Oh, that's a great cover." Then you open it up, and it's dog shit inside. So, um, anyways, I got a chance to like see like the interior art, and this is what makes me really curious about this book. Is look at this art, and I know not everyone cares about like drawings of animals, but regardless of the subject matter, man, the art in this book is gorgeous. Um, so I don't know if it's actually I haven't read this yet, so I'm just flipping through, just like if you were at the comic book
um,
store to
I
flip
would
through.
say now. I don't know, you like cat stuff like this, or so. Have you ever heard of Warrior Cats?
Mm-mm.
A series of novels based on adventures of drama of multiple clans of feral cats.
Mm.
Fictional forest is yeah, it was actually Kate Carey and Charity the Bulgy and some other ones. My niece read this back in the early 2000s, and there's like different kinds of cats or older cats, and like they're just and they're constantly fighting against each other. They're kind of like warrior clans.
Hmm.
So might be. I mean, it's not comic book. It's graphic novels or regular novels.
I've
There's
never
eight
heard
of
of it.
them. Yeah, came out 2003.
I just know that this art is gorgeous. Like I'm just like, damn, I missed this. If I would have seen this on the shelf with this art from the get go, I
It's
would have bought this
it's
series.
Samurai Doggy before.
No, I mean there's nothing like Samurai. I mean, to me, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know the story. I may hate the story. I just this art is just beautiful. Like and I'm a kind of person that you know
It looks like Disney art.
it is a little bit Disney. It's a little cartoony, and I was about to say one reason I like Usagi Jimbo. I don't necessarily just like comic. I like or cartoon art. Cartooning is
A rat with glasses.
it's a really yeah. Ah man. So anyways, I don't know if anyone else had heard about this book or read it. So I just thought I would bring that up. If
or what's
anyone is, let me know what you think.
or what's the
Um,
cats?
man, the art is just whew, so beautiful. This is from a Blaze. Um, and it's just amazing to me that like these little indie comic studios put together products that are just so quality like this. Like just oh. Anyways, that's
By a
it.
French artist too.
Yeah, that's probably why
French
it's
red.
good. It's French.
It's not American. Uh,
The
that's the
European
thing that
European comic scene is huge, dude. Like they embarrass us with the quality of their stuff.
mhm.
Uh,
It's just funny. This is the second book you point out to me. Oh, it's like this is a volume two. I'm like, I've never heard of the first volume. And that's the same thing with the Mark Miller one, the Magic or what he has now. It's out. It's like, what the heck? I've never. It's on its fourth. It's supposed to be the fourth volume. I've never heard of the first three.
this book just came out. I haven't read it. But I thought about you, Bankman, because it looked like this is possibly a vampire book, and I know you like vampires. And the only reason I think it's a vampire book is because that V in the survival. Um, but so I was like curious. I was like, oh, I wonder if this is the book that RDV is gonna to get.
Oh,
Um,
the blood on the ground. Oh, there he is.
so I don't know anything about it, but again, this is just like me virtually like flipping through a book at the comic book shop to see if it's something I'd be interested in. The art seems pretty decent. The coloring's a little garish, but um, I'm always on the lookout for something new, and like I said, I know you like vampire stuff. I'm not 100% sure this is a vampire book or not, but
Looks like kids discovering something and then they try to take care of themselves, but then things go wrong. And was it vampires or was it? Who knows?
so
Could have more than just this could be like zombie virus from Russia.
so this is
I don't know.
survival. Um, Let me know if you guys are reading this or not. Um,
It is
uh,
Dark Horse. So we have a better chance of being good.
yeah, Dark Horse is a decent publisher.
Yeah.
So
It's the one publisher I always forget that's around because I don't pay attention to Dark Horse books. They're few and far between. I find a title that I like. Um, when they were doing the Buffy and the Angel stuff, and I kind of noticed them more. I was like, what the heck is this? Smallville? I think it was actually did Smallville get was it through Dark Horse or what was that through? Was it through DC? Smallville had its own
I don't
was an
know.
adaptation. They're feeling like it was like they introduced Batman and stuff. I was like, what is this? But I remember being at a comic book store in Madison here, and I was like, and like they had like, I was like, what is this Angel? And I was like, holy shit! It looks exactly like the interior. It's like it looks like I'm watching the show, but it's on a comic book form. I couldn't believe it, and I was just like, and like it's. I always thought that was kind of cool. Like the show got canceled, but they continued it in comic book form. Like they did that for Expanse, but before they actually did it for Farscape. I think Battlestar Galactica also had a comic book adaptation for one of the seasons after the show ended. I mean,
Yeah, the so Battlestar Galactica and Expanse, I don't believe are continuations. Because Battlestar Galactica has an ending. Like it
well,
ends. There's
I
no
would say
continuing it really. But the
the current
Battlestar Galactica stuff,
Expanse
I believe, is like additional stories in the
uh,
middle of the seasons. Expanse
is a
already
continuation.
well, Expanse has a series of books.
Well, I'm saying the current comic book out right now is continues from the show. There's spoilers for the ending of the show. So if you go read the current Expanse book, I know issue one that's out right now, it's gonna spoil the ending of the show for you.
Well,
Because
the show ends before the book series, so I don't know. I don't know how they ended the show because
well,
it
they
got
a,
canceled before they reached
a character got canceled and they had to write him off the show.
Ray.
So yeah, I know. They're like, yeah, yeah.
Why don't you just
So
cast a new actor?
that's a hindsight, but oh well. Anyway, but
Or
it continues.
or just not cancel people. Maybe we could just stop canceling people.
Exactly, you know,
Either way. But my point
you
is
get this,
there's a
you
series of
got
novels. The show only goes through what, 6 of them? I think there's like 9 novels. So I don't know how they chose to end it because obviously they ended it prematurely. I guess it's possible the comics be adapting the other books because each season was like one of the books.
I don't know. Which it's Andrew Diggle writing it right now, and I said I've
Oh.
never really read any Diggle, but I'm
Uh,
actually enjoying it.
my understanding was that it was like a spin-off of like just additional stories that happened during the time, not continuing. And I know
Ti-
Battlestar Galactica is that way because that show actually ends.
This Expanse takes a year after since the timeline events of the show
Mm.
with the Rocinante and the crew, and a new threat is emerged, or yeah. So, but
Uh,
the great thing about having a show and then doing the comic book form is now when I read the characters, I read them in their voices of the actors.
yeah, that that's something I do too, typically.
Yeah.
If it's a movie or whatever. Yeah.
So that one and the one Indian lady that's on there, she's like the chairwoman or like president chairwoman or it's like for Earth, and it's just like whenever I read her part of the card, it's like, yep, I got her voice from my head, and it's exactly like she was currently in Renfield is the last movie she did. Last thing.
She's in a lot of things. She gets
I know, but good actress though. I like her.
she's all right. Yeah, she was in the thing I knew her biggest from was Mass Effect.
Was she in Mass Effect?
Oh, I'm trying to
Was she
remember.
like was she like a main character? Like was she like the
She was trying to remember who she was.
only in the first game, right?
No, I thought she was in all of them. She was one of those race where they had to like wear the mask because they like had
Oh,
different.
I was gonna ask, is that her? Okay, I'll have to go
Yeah,
back because I said, like, yeah, she's actually. I mean, I liked her in Expanse. Dude, I watched The Expanse on a whim. I was going through like some sci-fi, like, what is this starting? It's like season two. It's like, what is this? I watched it. It's like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm like, this is kind of cool. Like, like, and I'm not a big Star Trek or this stuff, but I was just like, they're in space, and like, there's like this protocol or not protoculture, what do we call it? Protoform or thing, and then just like I got hooked. So I went back and I watched the first season, and then like within like a week because I just binged through it. Just to get caught up. And like I said, it just watching it was fun. Because dude, Thomas Jane's in this.
hmm
Punisher, Thomas Jane is like they got a big name actor in this. Meaning, I guess you could say he's not really a big name actor, but I'd say he is at least. He's been in since I think he was a Dreamcatcher when I first saw him. I think, right? But overall, like I said, like it was like this is kind of cool, for being a sci-fi show. The last sci-fi show that I loved was Farscape, and this was more of a serious one. So, like I said, like spans. I've never read the books, but I might be checking out some of the books. But I said,
the
like,
books are good.
yeah,
The weird thing about the Expanse, especially from the book's consideration, is the first book is very different than the rest of the books. Like the first book is almost like a hard boiled like detective murder mystery, right?
Thomas Jane one, yeah, yeah, yeah,
and that's the character that Thomas Jane plays. He's like
yep,
looking for
yep,
a missing woman, but instead of being set in like typical times or even like in like the past, like a lot of hard boiled mysteries are like in the 30s or whatever or the 40s. This is set in the future, and it's like where humanity is kind of colonized the solar system, and so that's kind of interesting. But it's that style, and then after that, the next books go like full on sci-fi, crazy, weird shit, and
yeah. The show,
tonally, it's really weird. Like just how it changes up like that. And so for me, I wasn't enjoying the first book so much. I was like, man, this is a because I got into it when I was I don't think I was into comics. Back into comics. I was more into just I can't remember if I was into comics yet again. But I was like really getting into just, more novels and things, and I was following a lot of like different like, just like kind of like we do with comics, like fan sites and things about fantasy authors, sci-fi authors, things like that. And The Expanse was like what everyone was talking about, like, oh, my favorite series of all time, The Expanse. Like, and I was just like, what's this Expanse
Yep.
series? And it was weird because I couldn't find it. I would like go and be like The Expanse, and I'm like, the first book's called something else. I can't remember what the first book's even called now. It's not called The Expanse. So when you're like looking for it, I was like, I didn't even know what it was. I'm like, what's this? Anyways, I eventually found it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna read this book because everyone's talking about it. And I was like, this is so weird. This is not what I was expecting. I thought they made it sound like this big epic sci-fi thing, and it's just a murder mystery
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
missing persons case in space. But
Yep.
once you get to the second book, oh, dude. And then each one just gets more and more like it expands. The Expanse is really kind
First.
of a good name
Yeah.
because it's a
Yeah.
word for
Expand.
space, but it
Yep.
also, the story just expands. It just gets,
Yep.
every book is like, oh, you thought you knew something? We're going to blow it up and like make it bigger. And so I was really hooked in it. So when they launched the TV show, I was kind of like, oh, okay. USA, I think, did it originally. Um,
Yeah. The
and I
TV
was
show.
like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I'll check this out. And I was really impressed. I watched that first season, and even though I
Yep.
wasn't a big fan of the first book, it wasn't because the book's poorly written. It just wasn't what I was expecting. So I watched the show, and I'm like, wow, they really captured the first book. Like, this is really accurate. Like, I was making
The whole.
comparisons to Game of
Yeah.
Thrones, and like I was like how Game of Thrones followed the book so closely that first season. I was like, The Expanse is doing the same thing, not quite the same budget, but I was like, man, that's great. Like, I got real excited because I think I was like on book 4 at the time. I was like, I
Yeah.
knew where this series was going. So I was like, oh, dude, follow this show. And the problem is, well, just like Game of Thrones, the later seasons started deviating from the books. And so I was like, oh no, what's not
For
that they
me,
got bad per se,
yeah.
but once I had already read them, so I was like, whenever you read something first, you inevitably
It's your
have that
script.
comparison, you
Yeah.
know? You're like, if you do something different and if in my opinion it's not as good, if I like the other thing better, then it's a negative. So
Be like us. Uh, Read The Boys after you watch The Boys. To hear the comic book after we watch the show, because that's why I got hooked by the first season. Thomas Jane and like the whole concept, the fact that we've colonized Mars, but then Mars they basically said, "Screw you, we're independent now." I was like, "This is Gundam." It's a
well,
colony broke away from the Earth Federation.
it's also kind of Game of Thronesy. Well, I
Yeah,
don't think you really watch Game of Thrones, but there's like
no,
that
but
politics. There's like three major
yeah,
factions. You got Old Earth,
yeah,
you got the Mars colonies, but then you have the belt, the asteroid
the
belt,
Belters, yeah,
the
yeah,
Belters.
and
Yeah,
the Belters are the ones that mine for everything for they sell the water minerals for people in space, but not only for Earth because Earth is replenished of their minerals and resources. They rely on the Belters. The Belters have their own language. They all live up there. Their little subculture, and they're basically like the lower class, you know. And you got the military faction of the Mars, and then you got the Earth, which basically is all the rich elites live down there. The Belters have basically grown up in space. They cannot go to Earth. Earth's atmosphere, basically, the gravity kills them. Their lungs, everything. They can't stand it.
yeah,
Uh,
and
um,
they're really
oh
tall because they grew up in
yeah,
low gravity. So
yeah.
like
Um,
their like
I
bodies are like
so
stretched. They couldn't really do
so
that on
I
the TV show quite as well,
no
but
no.
because they
So
can't.
I
But in the books, the way they talk about the Belters are like 7 feet tall and real skinny and lanky because they grew up in like low G.
So, but I love though that first season though. Like I said, the Thomas Jane just being he's a detective or a cop on there on the Belter unit, and he's I guess he's not full Belter, he's like half Belter or something like that. They don't really. I mean, he's like they don't look him as being a full Belter because he's a cop or something
Yeah.
like that. I don't know, outsider. Anyway, you see him like he a rich person's daughter goes missing, and he's basically hired to locate her. And as he said, like as he basically goes through the Belter space station they have, where it's basically like if you played Mass Effect, even the second game, there's a central citadel. That's basically the Belter kind of thing. There's always all these little space like it's like, almost like a space mall. As you say, you have your different restaurants, and you have a bar in there. You have your pleasure, your brothel and stuff. Anything you need, people live in there, and just like and he's trying to figure out, okay, where's this rich girl? Why was this rich girl here? And like, trying to find out where she is. And then like when he finally finds her, he finds this strange blue alien substance, But also at the same time as that's going on, you're introduced to this character named Eric, basically Holden, and his crew that came across a spaceship that was abandoned, and they're going in there because they're salvagers, and they go out, and then for whatever reason, they're like, they decide to jump off there, and as soon as they do, their ship gets destroyed with all the other people on there. So they manage to survive. And there's right now there's tension between the Earth, like the Earth and the Mars colony and stuff. And it's just like they're trying. It's just trying to political tension, keep the two from fighting, and just trying to figure out what's going on. Now there's just this new kind of alien blue substance and
Yeah.
like it's got and then just like who's trying, what is this experiment gone wrong, we don't know. It's just like said, it just spirals out like a tree, it's like roots, tree roots, these different branches going on at the same time, and it's just and for me it was well written. Later seasons, I think they focus too much on that, but then towards the end though they tried to expand more on who created this kind of like this the blue subsets, who created it, and they find like there's these wormholes and just like it's just other things. It's just like the way they brought back Thomas Jane character. Oh, it was just like, oh my gosh, it's like and then it ends. It's like they're like, obviously this show will never be continued. I don't think it will. They said like they're taking a break. I mean, Sci-Fi canceled it because Sci-Fi did not own, I guess, the streaming rights, so they make no money off it. So they're like, "Well, we're done with it." I was just like, "You guys are idiots." That's one thing that's reason people are coming to watch Sci-Fi Channel is for that show. At the moment,
It
you
was
know,
I thought it was USA that did that show originally.
no, it was Sci-Fi. I don't know if for USA, but I mean, I've always seen first season was on Sci-Fi.
Oh.
So,
Because I
but
know it got
USA,
canceled
well, no,
after season 2, and then Prime picked it up.
well, Sci-Fi and USA are owned by the same company. They're both Universal. They're
Okay.
both, yeah. Yeah, so that's why you saw, if you remember watching back day, you had wrestling was popping up over on Sci-Fi.
Wrestling
Like
on Sci-Fi is so stupid. I was like, "What are you doing?"
so yeah, but they canceled it, and then like it Expanse got picked up on Amazon. I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
thank you very much. I was like, and they just continued it. Now this is for someone who's never read the books. Holy crap, it is great. Now, I can imagine you're like, oh, they could have done this better because in the books here, it's like, I
First
dig it,
season
man.
the first season followed the book really. I think I've only seen the first 3 seasons. The first season followed the books really close. And then the second season followed it pretty close, but changed some things. And then the third season started going really deviant because they
I'll
introduced
just
some like
say,
new characters, like that girl Marine,
yes, to Martian, yeah.
and she's in the she's in the books, but they give her like a much bigger part, like in the show. And whenever you
Um,
do that, you inevitably have to change the story because like you're like, oh well, she didn't exist doing these things in the book, like so. For me, I didn't hate the show. I actually really liked it in the beginning. I just kind of weaned off because I was such a fan of the book, and it was a little disheartening that some of the changes. I do want to go back. Um, I don't. What I don't like is when I'm in the middle of reading a series, though. The show, and if it's different, like it taints what I'm reading because like my brain doesn't work as well as it used to, and I get confused about what my canon is in my head. I'm like, oh, did
Yeah.
that happen in the show, or is that how the book went? I don't remember. And so I was like, I'm just gonna stop watching the show until I read all the books, and then I can go
So
back and watch the show.
I'll just tease you this: they do talk about a black. They do show a black spire in the show. This is some alien monolith. So
Hmm,
if that's in the book, it's in
that's
the
not
it's
not in the book.
see. So like I said, for me, I liked the show for what it was.
No, it was
Towards the
good. The stuff
end,
I saw
yeah,
was
yeah,
good. Like I said, it was for me. It was more of a conflict
yeah, the book. Yeah.
from because why is this character doing this thing? I thought, oh, that's right, that was only in the show they did that. I'm like, you know, um, because I'm the same way when I
As
read the books now. I read it in those voices of the actors, and I
yep.
visualize the actors, like, so
Yep.
my memories get confused. But it's a good show. If anyone hasn't seen it, and if you like sci-fi,
Oh,
it's
I love.
a good sci-fi show. Like it's one of those sci-fi shows that's really like thoughtful, like how they explain like space travel. They came up with a really, I think this is actually a real thing that NASA's working on, a kind of a propulsion system to like
The
travel
engine. Yeah.
fast through the because otherwise it takes like years to go through the solar system. So they have explanations of that. I love like the Rosinante, which is the ship that the characters have that Holden is the captain of. I love because the main characters, they're ice. What are they like? They're just transport. They're basically like space truckers. they're like they're shipping
Yeah.
ice, just a
They
massive like blocks, like huge, like glacier sized pieces of ice on like a spaceship. So
they
they're
might have,
shipping it
yeah,
to
they
the
might have.
belt because the belt doesn't have water, and so that's how they do it. And then they investigate with this distress call that they go, and then that's the part where they get blown up. But then they end
Yeah.
up coming across another ship, the Rosinante, which happens to be like this state of the art Martian
Military.
destroyer, military
Yeah.
destroyer. And in the lore, the Martians are like the most advanced technologically,
Yeah.
even more than Earth, because that's like just yeah, I guess they have to be because they're like a settlement
They were the
colony.
first.
They
Yeah.
rely on
Yeah.
technology a lot more. And so their military ships are way more advanced even than the Earth ships. So they have this Rosinante. So these like truckers end up with this ship. They salvage it legally, like they according to like salvage laws, but it's like a military ship. And so there's a little bit of weird dealings that they later will have with the Martians and stuff because of this. But it's just like cool, like how these characters get a hold of this ship that they really shouldn't have, but it allows so many cool things for them to do in the story. Um,
Just the whole when they're in space, when they're like they can fire so they have a rail gun and they only have torpedoes, kind of like a submarine thing. They only go for so raw, but then they have like how they turn little. It's like you see like in a spaceship, where it
uh-huh.
shoots a tuff of air and
Yep.
directional, and it's like a joystick. It is just cool, and it's not like it's like you're seeing like a toy model in space turning, like in '50s, but I mean, like the CG graphics in there, it's a lot of props, but with a green screen background. You'll see that when they're in space. They're actually they actually do build it, the behind the scenes stuff. They build,
Yeah.
the interior, everything. Um, Everyone they meet is like the reason I liked it so much because it reminded me of Mass Effect.
There's some similar qualities to Mass Effect. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, especially
It
Mass Effect 2.
yeah, it's a lot lower on the fantasy side than Mass Effect. Like Mass Effect has like a lot bigger, more epic things, and characters have powers and things. In this, they don't, but it has a lot of that intrigue and the different factions and sort of that stuff that Mass Effect had. Um,
But
Also, there's not like alien races. There's just humans. But
no, no, but there are. Like I said, I don't. It's not spoiling anything. Like I said, they said that blue goo they find. Yeah, it just does lead to something as far
oh
as
yeah, it does.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
but but you
that's
know,
the best
but you're
thing
not.
about that
Yeah.
first book is how it ends with
Uh,
Venus
yeah.
and just like what, and then the way the second book picks up right from there, which is the second season of the show, and you're just like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what just blows it wide open for me. Yeah, yeah, check it out. If you like sci-fi, it's a thoughtful. It's not like goofy. It's like the polar opposite of the other one you mentioned that you said you watch.
Uh, uh, Polar opposite would be like Farscape would be the goofy.
Farscape, yeah.
Uh,
It's a polar opposite
Farscape,
of like Farscape.
but I do like Farscape because Farscape was like one of the first sci-fi shows that actually had a good cast.
Yeah, no,
Even the
Farscape is
yeah,
like fun.
yeah,
Like it's just
yeah.
schlocky kind of space
It's
opera kind of fun.
it is.
This is more of like that serious like 2001 kind of space odyssey sci-fi.
30
E-
minutes you watch them in space. This is
everything
cool.
is everything in it is like realist, like they think about it. Like how would spaceships really
Logic,
work? Like, they don't
launching
fly.
asteroids at Earth. They do
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it's just if you have that brain of like science, like it's not sci-fi, it's science fiction. Like everything in the show and the right,
Like,
it's based in actual science. And I
well,
like that.
yeah,
I'm kind of a techie nerd, like so I love stories and
like
like oh they actually thought about this.
terrorists that they wanted to basically like terrorize Earth. They could attach jet engines to like certain giant chunks of asteroids and move them in the directional path of the Earth.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah, dude,
like I said,
the terrorism in the future is scary. It's like
but like I love them. But not only did they just show you space, but they actually in the seasons they take you down to Earth and you to see the state of Earth. It's like
yeah.
the cities that are like they're overrun, and it's like in like I think Philadelphia is one of them. They're in. They're like it's like Detroit, pretty much at that point as far as like the gangs and stuff.
Yep.
Uh, I every character has his own Amos has his own personality. Amos in I don't know what he like in the book, but in the show, he's a violent man.
Yes.
He has to control his temper. You don't really know about you. He's kind of mysterious, but I know that he's with the girl.
He's even more so in the book. Like
Yeah,
the
but the
show
girl's
captures
pretty
him
much.
pretty well, but I feel the show tames him a little bit. The-
Um,
in
the
the
girl.
book, he's scary. You're like, I don't want to get up on this guy's bad side.
Yeah, yeah. In the show, there's this girl. I forgot her name is, but she's pretty much she's like the mechanic of the ship. And her and Amos have been traveling together for a while. They're kind of like brother and sister in a sense.
Yeah.
So, um,
Good character. That's another thing. Yeah, it's got a good cast of characters that are like very diverse, like, and I mean personality wise, like they're just, and it really makes for an interesting dynamic because they all have different backgrounds and they all see the world differently, but they're all crewmates, so they have like a bond. Um, and it makes for a good like what do you call it?
commodity or a party venture party. Like, if you're an RPG,
Yeah,
but they're more so
so
they're a family for how
yeah.
close they are. Um, Overall, like I said, most people were speculating it's the best space show since Star Trek.
Um, no, it's not. But
Would you?
it is
What
the
would you rank?
best. It is the best like sciency fiction. Like if you like that part about Star Trek, that like that there's like actual science involved in the writing, then it has that.
I remember.
I say no because I'm partial. My favorite sci-fi show of all time, even above Star Trek, is no the reboot of Battlestar Galactica.
Uh,
It is
I think
that
I think
show
I see
is
Babylon 5.
Babylon 5 was good for what it was, and that always will have a soft spot in my heart. Um, but it's got a lot of flaws too. Um,
I mean, when I saw, I've seen a little bit of Battlestar Galactica, Trisha Helfer, Katie Sackhoff. There's that hot Asian chick on there too. I can see why you guys are watching that. I might have to
I
watch it too.
wasn't watching it for them, but if that helps you, then so be it. No, it's just super well done. Battlestar Galactica. Oh, now it does suffer in season 3. There was a major writer strike, so the show did have a dip, but they pulled it together in season 4 and they managed to end it really, really well, which I was never sure that they were going to be able to pull that off. But the first 2 seasons, and in the well, and in the beginning of season 3 is
Mhm.
some of the best TV I've ever watched. And in fact, I think it's like the first beginning of season 3. I don't remember which episode it is. Maybe like the second or third episode is like one of the best single episodes of TV I've ever seen. Like just phenomenal, and just the build up that show just did everything so well. Special effects were were just I couldn't believe that a sci-fi channel show was doing visual production levels of this quality. Um, yeah, and just
It almost felt like a movie or
Edward
it
James
was a
Olmos as Commander Adama is one of my favorite characters ever. Just uh, man, that show just I got so many good things to say about it. For just watch the miniseries. Go through one day. It started off as a miniseries, like it's like 2 episodes, or 3 episodes. I don't remember. It's not long. Watch that and see if it sparks you to want to watch more. That's how I started. I was against the Battlestar Galactica because I was like, oh man, they rebooted this and they race swapped Starbuck. I was like, F this show. I was like, pff, you know, and then everyone was talking about it. Everyone was talking about it. Everyone was talking about it. And it was like season 1 was playing and they were like, this is the best show on TV. And I was like, okay. That always happens where I'm like, okay, I have to see this for myself. So ended up going and renting. I think they actually had it at the library. I don't remember. I got the mini series on DVD and watched it with my ex. And just remember like finishing it and just being like, oh, well, that's pretty good. Like we
so,
should check out
so
the first season. So we went and bought I went down to Best Buy and just bought the first season on DVD because I think the first season already wrapped. And obviously, it was. I had to buy it. They were like probably going on season 2. And then we just sat there and binged that whole first season. It was like, oh, this is even better than the miniseries. Holy crap! And then eventually season 2 came out. Got that, binged that, and I was like, season 2 is even better than season 1. Like it just was one of those shows that got better and better. And like I said, there's a certain episode on in season 3, and I don't remember the which one it was, but it's a rescue attempt. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone that ever gets to this. But if you've seen the series or you get to it, you'll know it's a rescue story where they have to do this major rescue attempt, and it's just awesome. It's just so cool. I was like, this should be a movie. Um, and I was completely sold. Like, um, the whole gender swapped Starbuck. Ronnie is correcting me, not race swapped. I apologize if I misspoke. Yeah, gender swapped. Um, won me over. Like, um, what's her name? Katie Sackhoff, is that her name?
yeah, yeah.
Um, totally. Like, I'm just like, your version of Starbuck is great. And that was a big hurdle when you can overcome that prejudice that I had. Um,
When you can do a character gender swap but not have her be a Mary Sue.
she wasn't a Mary Sue. She was
Yeah,
actually much more interesting than the
in the
original
original one.
Starbuck. They gave her so much depth and dimension. They made her interesting without having to do the stupid shit that they do now with all these female gender swaps, where they just
She was so
basically they swap the character into a female body, but then they keep the exact same trait. So it's basically a man, the character's still masculine and they still act like a man, but it's now a woman character. They didn't do that with Starbuck. They gender swapped her, but they also made her character a woman, like an actuality in the way she thought and the way she behaved, and all the challenges that come along with being a woman. And it made the character dynamic and interesting. And you're right, she was not a Mary Sue. She was the best pilot in the fleet, but that was always the whole thing about Starbuck. She's the Maverick, right? If you watch Top Gun, Maverick and
Mhm.
Iceman, it's literally Starbuck and Apollo. I mean, that's the dynamic of those
But
characters
it
anyway.
but in this, didn't she get together with Apollo?
She has a connection to Apollo, but it's
There was like
yeah.
I do remember that she did have a boyfriend, a love interest, didn't she,
Uh-huh.
in the show?
Mhm.
Was that supposed to be Apollo or is it somebody else?
No. It she has a romantic entanglement with Apollo, but it it's just one of those things that it's played off much more kind of like I would imagine like how two police partners, how if you put a male and a female police partners, how oftentimes
Mm.
they'll hook up just because they're thrown into like such traumatic or just they're thrown into circumstances that force a tight bonding and they're already your male and female biology takes care of the rest. So
Miranda
it's
says that no, says wait, Ripley, which most people praise, was written as a man, and the only change that was made to the character was casting Sigourney Weaver, a woman in the role. She was feminine but not girly. She was Mama Bear. That's what she
yeah, but
was.
Sigourney Weaver didn't play Ripley as a man. So I think I've heard that before, but what's in the script and what actually comes out in the directing and the acting aren't always the same. Um, so clearly, if you watch Alien or Aliens, even more when James Cameron gets involved, um, she's she's a woman. She's not a girly woman, like obviously, because she's a minor, so she's gonna have that little toughened attitude because she's got to hang around a lot of men and she does a hard blue collar job. She's a minor. Um, so, but I always liked Ripley because of the fact that she was a woman. Um, I don't know. I can't stand it. I don't know why other people do, but it's one of my biggest pet peeves when I see women written like men and men written like women. Like I feel like I'm being gaslighted. I feel like,
What is a woman?
but yeah, Sigourney Weaver, and she's a good actress. So yeah, Battlestar Galactica, highly recommend. Highly recommend. Oh man, there's so much on that show. So much philosophical things. There's great space battles, action, mystery. So many different characters of all different types to like or hate. So much tension built up. I mean, the very premise of the show is it's the last Battlestar, and you're being hunted by the Cylons, and you're fleeing, and you're trying to find this 13th colony which which is Earth, and most people think it's a myth. And you're watching this show, and you're like, did Commander Adama like make this shit up? And he's just like trying to keep hope in the crew so they don't mutiny. And there is no actual Earth because if he tells them there's no hope, there's nowhere to go, we're all gonna die. Battlestar Galactica, the reboot is so good. It's like a war story, and these people in these harrowing circumstances and what this commander has to do to like lead these people to the quote unquote promised land, which may or not actually be made up by him just to keep hope alive. And then when people start finding out that that's the case, but meanwhile, you can't have infighting because, oh yeah, the Cylons are attacking you and killing you. Just wow, the situation. It makes for great storytelling. Um, Marani says there's truly a tragic storyline with Adama, the new president of the colonies. Yeah, yes, Marania, 100%. The president and Adama, their relationship, they tell such a great story of politics because she's the liberal representation and he's kind of the conservative representation. But the story tells political commentary without actually involving current mainstream politics. It does politics right. It sticks completely just to the ideologies, but within the framework of the story. It never stretches out and addresses the politics that we in this world live in. Never, it only is like, here we are, we're in this situation in this world. Here is how I view it politically. And this other character is like, no, I view it politically this way. And it's only within their world. And it keeps you in the escapism. And then you as an audience member, you of course are going to approach the show with your own view, right? And so you might side with the president or you might side with Adama, but it never breaks the fourth wall into our politics, right? And so it's really great that way. I can't speak highly enough about this show. Sorry. And you're right, Marania. It is tragic. I love those two characters. They're so good. Oh man, the president. Um,
They'd be even better if they were in a lesbian relationship and they were handicapped and black.
ah, oh man.
And written by Megan Fitzmart and drawn by Riley Roswell.
Man. Anyways, I think we need to wrap this up. Do you have anything else you want to address before we get going?
Bar scores and 7 years ago, I created a channel called the Geeky Puppet Show. Oh, this hasn't been 4 years, but tomorrow night, or I guess it typically is tomorrow. It's 2 a.m. Later on tonight at 8 o'clock p.m. Zach's gonna be on here. We're gonna be talking about the books coming out this week. These are the most anticipated books. The books we think they're gonna be the best books of the week. And then stick around to Thursday, same time, 8 p.m. Central. Find out if those books actually held on true to being the best books of the week. And then see what other maybe some back issues we got. Eric Green will join us on Thursdays. But yeah, that's going to be for an hour tonight from 8 till 9 p.m. an hour. And maybe Ash will stop by. We'll talk about some trades. Who knows?
You never know.
Exactly. He may complain about not being favorited and getting a link.
I do have a tendency to complain.
That's why we create a suggestion box on my channel. Let's get it. Wednesday night I'm flying solo, reviewing Superman and Lois and The Flash. Only one of those shows would be good. But both reviews would be good though. But yeah, and then Friday night is the return of the Fantastic Four readings. So check out for that. Gonna read some of Tuma. Yeah, get the Tuma. We got the Nema. Yeah, that's gonna be great. Yeah, nothing really else than that. Uh, if you haven't watched Expanse, looking for a show right now to watch while everything's on strike and they're for the writers. Watch The Expanse. Hell, if you haven't seen Farscape, check out Farscape, man, and then and watch the Peacekeeper Wars, which is the little 2-part movie they did to wrap up the series. After Sci-Fi gave them the shaft and said, "We're canceling you after renewing it for your 5th season." Don't.
And
Yeah.
and we have a little reading club that we do over on my Discord. If you're interested in reading comics and talking about comics with other people, other fans, you're interested in perhaps challenging your comfort zone and trying new things, you're welcome to come join us. It's not broadcast live on air. It's just in a voice chat, and it's just like a club. It's just to hang out and
Yep,
share
yep,
our experiences with the book, whether we liked it or didn't like it, or things like that. And we're currently reading through Murder Falcon, 4 issues at a time. It's an 8 issue miniseries. Last meetup, we covered issues 1 through 4.
yep.
And this Thursday, we'll be covering issues 5 through 8 and wrapping it up. And if you want to participate, by all means, just catch up. It's 8 issues. You can read it in one sitting. I highly recommend Murder Falcon. It is so good. You heard Venkman super enthusiastic about it. It will make you tear up. It will make you feel good. It is just a heartwarming story that's probably a little bit different than anything you read, but really cool. And yeah, we'll be talking about it Thursday evening after the Geeky Puppet stream. So probably around 8 o'clock Pacific time, over on the Ash on Comics Discord channel, which you can find information down below, um, on how to connect to the Discord channel if you're not already a part of it. And you're welcome. Yeah, come by. We'd love it's all like I said, it's about hanging out and having fun, sharing comics. And that's where we are. So I just wanted to plug that in case you're interested. And I think that's it.
Yeah, yeah. We're looking to get 20 people inside the reading group now.
I don't know
That's
if
our
we want.
goal. Like at least.
Do we want 20? That's a lot. Uh, what I really, I'm not actually looking for numbers. What I'm looking for is just people that want to be there. If you want to be there, I want to provide an avenue, like a place where you can go. Like some people, I love talking about comics, and sometimes I go. The reason I'm doing this reading club is because it didn't already exist. If someone else was like, yeah, we're doing that too, I'd be like, oh, sign me up. So if it's not something you're interested in, that's totally cool. I don't care about numbers. I just want to be a place that people are like would get something out of it, that would enjoy it, to provide an avenue and a facility that they can have. And if anything, I don't want to grow in numbers. I want to grow in like reading. Maybe read more books as more people get enthusiastic about it, or have a separate club. I don't know. See where it goes. I don't want to force anything, but yeah.
Yep. And that should be about it. So like I said, keep if you haven't subscribed to the Geeky Pup Show, subscribe to there. Click the notification bell, and if you're not subscribed here, what are you doing? You're wasting your life. It's one Monday per week. You can listen to us rant and rave about things that maybe you do like.
Thank you everyone for participating in the chat. I really do appreciate seeing the comments. I love interacting, and just like I said, to just be part of the family. Uh, that's all I want. Just being comic friends together. That sounded really cheesy and sappy.
We're the Get Along Gang, guys.
Time to go.
Good night.